It is Monday. Welcome in. This is Three-Man Front on Jocks. Conrad, Landrum, Pat, with you until 2 o'clock today. We are a day closer to the start of the college football season. We're just 2 weeks away. Landrum will be in Atlanta, Georgia for the SEC Football Media Days. About this time in 2 weeks, we'll have Commissioner Greg Sankey giving the State of the Conference address, which will be very interesting considering the fact that there's so many questions in regards to what's going to happen with this conference moving forward and with the college football playoff.
But what we do know is we're in store for another great season of college football when it comes to member institutions from the SEC. How many of those teams are going to be vying for a college football playoff berth? Can't wait, man. It's hard to believe that, well, we kind of officially recognize it as the start of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will be here Monday through Wednesday. We will be off Thursday and Friday, and then we'll be back at it next Monday. And then we will be a week away from being in Atlanta for SEC Media Day. So we'll have a full run of shows there in Atlanta.
Yeah. And I know that a lot of our friends that we talk to throughout the year, some all year round, and then some that we talk to just during football season, they're going to be there, and that's always a good time to not only catch up with players and coaches from all the member institutions, but also from our brethren and our sisters in the media.
So much to get into later on in the program at 11:30. Looking forward to this interview. As you listen to this show, you know we're all uniform geeks when it comes to this show. Well, tomorrow is a very big day in the history of Auburn athletics, as today is the last day that Auburn will be an Under Armour school. 20 years Auburn has been an Under Armour school. It is crazy.
Conrad, you got to throw away all your Auburn Under Armour stuff.
Man, I have to throw away all 0 Auburn pieces of clothing that I own.
You don't own one piece of Auburn clothing?
No.
Okay. So Clint Richardson, who runs a website that if you're a uniform geek, it is a must bookmark. It is the Auburn Uniform Database. And you want to talk about just deep dive, rabbit hole with some of the incredible things that he has put on that website in regards to the history, just you name it. And it's not just football. I mean, it's all the other Auburn sports. But he's going to join the show at 11:30, and we're going to talk about this in regards to the move to Nike. Does this mean that we're going to have a new template? Does that mean that Auburn's going to change some things up? Could we have an orange football jersey?
Oh, Pat. Maybe.
Heck, we'll even ask him. I know he doesn't cover them, but we'll ask him, could a black helmet for the University of Alabama be in the mix?
That's what I'm talking about.
Seems like a no-brainer to me, but guess that's why they don't pay me to make decisions.
Make that baby boy smile right there.
So Clint's going to join us in the 11 o'clock hour. Then 12 o'clock hour, Blake Topmeyer, outstanding college football columnist for USA Today Network. He'll join the program. And then 1 o'clock, we're going to go to Salt Lake City. Just a very disturbing story over the weekend of BYU's starting quarterback. Now it appears that he is going to be heading to the transfer portal. We will talk to Jake Hatch about BYU, the rest of the Big 12, and what's in store for them and the rest of the conference, as we're just a little over a couple weeks away from Big 12 Media Days. But as we do customarily on Monday, we'd love to hear from you on the Courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-9450, 1-800-239-WJOX is the phone number here on Reaction Monday. A little bit of college football news right out of the gate. It just happened about 20 minutes ago. This is no surprise whatsoever, but Texas State's board has unanimously approved a buyout up to $5 million to leave the Sun Belt, and they have authorized the university administration to accept the invitation to the Pac-12 conference. This is not breaking news. This is something that we anticipated. So they're going to pay $5 million to leave the Sun Belt. So now we'll see what's going to happen with the Sun Belt. More than likely, they will go to Conference USA, and they'll grab one of those teams.
So if I'm Texas State, why is this inviting to go and jump to the Pac-12 as opposed to staying where you are? Because I can think of a lot of pros on why to stay.
I would assume that the bean counters and those that have a CPA, that they're sitting there looking at the numbers of what the Pac-12 is going to be able to deliver to them in the coming years. And even though you're going to have to travel a good bit in regards to getting to wherever you got to go play volleyball and everything else, that is going to offset, and they will make money more than staying in the Sun Belt.
And depending on what happens with the Pac-12, you could say that you're a member of one of the power conferences, and that's going
Absolutely.
to help you in recruiting and all of that.
Yeah, because who knows what's going to happen with the college football playoff. Maybe the Pac-12 ultimately gets itself back with its toe in the door in regards to being one of those power conferences, because currently they are not. So we'll see what happens. Texas State and Matt McLaren, those that listen to this radio station know that our former teammate, Matt McLaren, is a graduate of Texas State. They have over 40,000 students there in San Marcos. If you're not familiar with where San Marcos is literally right in between San Antonio and Austin. So from San Antonio, it's about a 35 to 40-minute drive, and it's about the same from San Marcos to Houston. So it is a perfect location, right smack dab in the middle of Texas in regards to Austin and San Antonio. So there's a lot of really great talent, over 40,000 students there. It's just going to be interesting to see because let's just be honest, the Texas State football team has only been decent over the last couple of years. I mean, we're talking about a program that struggled a good bit until the last couple of years in which they got to their first bowl game in 2023. All those other years, they were winning 2 and 3 football games a year, not conference, a year. But they have definitely turned it around. So
it's interesting is 43 minutes ago, I just saw the update, and 43 minutes ago, Wikipedia updated where Texas State
is a member of the Pac-12.
Is a part of the Pac-12.
They're on top of it, man.
Yep.
Go Bobcats.
It doesn't matter what we think. Well, I guess it does because we have opinions like our listeners, but to the powers that be, it doesn't. Do you view, I know by letter of the law they would be, but would you view the Pac-12 as a power conference?
No.
No.
Nope, not even close.
I don't either.
I don't even think you would say they're the best group of 6 conference now or whatever that would be.
I would put the American Athletic Conference ahead of them.
Yeah, I would too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we would have to do a deep dive on the not the A-Sun, but on the Sun Belt.
Yeah, the Sun Belt. To me, the Sun Belt is probably
it's a really good conference.
Better than the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm.
I think that argument, it could certainly be made.
But the most important facet to this is Oregon State and Washington State. They have rebuilt the Pac-12 conference. This now gives them 8 Pac-12 football teams, FBS 20.
What do they? Is it strictly getting to a certain number of teams to get back to power conference territory, or are there other qualifications that they have to meet?
That is going to be up to the 4 other club members.
Okay, so it comes down to the other conferences to either let them back in.
I mean,
or
there's
not. Okay.
well, yeah, because to have a seat at the table, if you remember the Pac-12, it was part of the Power 5. I mean, they were able to control a lot what they did with the college football playoff and everything else. Once the Pac-12 was dissolved and all those teams went off to other places, they didn't have a seat at the table anymore. And so now, just like the 3 of us are sitting here talking about it, I don't put the Pac-12 ahead of the Sun Belt or the American Athletic Conference.
So it's not like they get to 12 teams and then get to go, all right, hey, we're back.
No.
Thanks.
Not unless all of a sudden they go grab 3 or 4 schools that would turn some heads.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
So good for them.
Notre Dame to the Pac-12.
Got some long.
Wouldn't that be something?
Some long road trips. But you're used to it because you're in the state of Texas. Going from one side of the state of Texas to the other, that's
true.
And not to mention the fact from being in San Marcos, I mean, direct flights from San Antonio or Austin, pretty easy, back and forth. So good for them.
Go Bobcats.
Yeah. So as we left you on Friday, we were anticipating that Alabama was in store for a really good recruiting weekend. And just like Rodney Orr told us on Thursday, everything Rodney Orr has told us in the Firecracker 5 that he debuted on this show, they have come to fruition. 5-star linebacker Xavier Griffin, he committed to Alabama over the weekend. Ooh, there you go.
There it is.
He commits to Alabama over Texas, Ohio State, Florida State. Griffin is the number 1 linebacker and the number 8 overall player in the 2026 class. So that is not a surprise, not a shock at all. Also on Friday, we told you that 3-star linebacker Zay Hall from Hillcrest, Tuscaloosa, he was going to make his announcement with Gary Harris on WVUA TV 23 in Tuscaloosa. He did so, and he committed to Alabama. So now, hey, a little late on that. So that's 2.
Like a warm-up chime
Yeah, it was
before
a
that.
warm-up chime.
So the Tide is now a top 10 recruiting class, Landrum. They were at 34 midweek last week. So that's what happens when you grab a couple 5 stars.
You got to hang on to them.
Yeah.
Win football games. That's it. Just hang on to them and win football games, and you're going to be good. But no, Xavier Griffin, that is one of the few recruits who you say his name, and I think more people would know it than they would some of these other highly touted prospects.
And Josh Niblett has coached a lot of really talented individuals in his career. The longtime Hoover head coach who's now at Gainesville, Georgia High School, and he had just glowing things to say about Xavier Griffin. So,
and as we talked about last week with Yay Alabama, as you see now, they're putting out these recruitment and commitment videos, and that's kind of their new thing. So that was a nice little tribute they had, and Coach Niblett was even a part of it.
Tuscaloosa, I think, a much better fit than Los Angeles.
I think so too.
Yeah, a little bit different going from USC to Alabama.
Mm-hmm. It gets hot in Tuscaloosa.
And major kudos to Xavier Griffin. If you tuned in and watched the commitment ceremony,
quick,
they got right to it.
Yeah,
like this wasn't let's like, belabor the point for the next 30 minutes.
I think he committed at 145, or it started at 145. He committed at 147.
Yeah.
2 minutes.
You know, something that became trendy that I don't hear as much anymore, and we should hear it more, is it was a business decision. You know what I'm talking about, Conrad, because I see you laughing. We would hear it's a business decision. And this was pre-NIL. It's a business decision.
Nah.
We don't hear it's a business decision anymore.
It's a family decision. Follow the heart, Landrum, not the money.
Okay. I will.
But we do want to warn all the listeners, the caveat. You don't sign paperwork in June.
That's right.
December is a long time away.
Especially if you go 9-3 again.
That would not be optimal if you're an Alabama fan trying to hold on to some of these kids. So,
yep.
Just
good to have them now, but it doesn't mean anything.
Just want to remind everybody. So whether your team is a top 10 recruiting class team right now or top 70, a lot can happen between now and then.
It can. What you hope for is that Xavier Griffin decides that he is going to take it upon himself to be one of the recruiters in this class. And that usually bodes well.
Mm-hmm.
But long way to go. But good for Alabama for right now.
Well, the Alabama humidity can be brutal, but don't let it affect your home and family. Keep them comfortable with an affordable Trane cooling system. They've been recognized as America's most trusted brand now for 11 straight years, and they're our official heating and cooling partner right here at Jocks. So go visit them online today to find a comfort specialist near you at Trane.com.
So a former Auburn basketball player, he's going to get paid some big do-re-mi. We will tell you how much and who it is. Plus, a little bit of hot water for an NBA star. Oh, no. Betting in the game of basketball? You got to be kidding me. We'll get into that next on 3 Man Front. It is 10:17 here on Jocks Reaction Monday. 1-800-239-WJOX, 205-834-9450 on the Courtesy GMC text line. And based on my traffic coming in, it appears that a lot of people are out of town. Downtown Birmingham was easy peasy today.
Not a lot.
No.
I'll take it.
With holiday week coming up, end of the week, I should say, 4th of July. We will be here, though, Monday through Wednesday, and then we'll be off Thursday and Friday. Reminder, we will be at Social Taco tomorrow, starting at 10 a.m. I understand that it is a patriotic theme, Conrad. It will be USA Tuesday.
Yeah, so wear red, white, and blue, whatever. If you have, any American-themed clothing, that'll be good to go. If you just have a red shirt and white shoes and blue pants or whatever you got to do, make it happen. And I know there'll be some, I believe, some America-themed dessert that'll be on hand
Red velvet
as well.
cake.
Maybe playing into the red, white, and blue theme a little bit.
I found a 7-layer dip. It's like a bean dip recipe. And maybe I'll unveil that tomorrow. I'm not going to make it, but I'll tell you how to make it, where you can do a likeness of Old Glory there on top.
Very cool.
Get the stars, the stripes.
Yeah.
For the blue portion of the flag, that would be the blue corn tortilla chips.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then you get little pieces of mozzarella or provolone
for the stars.
Just be festive while you're getting fatter.
Absolutely. Hey, America.
That's right.
Is that not America?
That's America.
Well, speaking of America and capitalism, how about former Auburn Tiger and current Houston Rockets forward Jabari Smith Jr.? He intends to sign a 5-year, $122 million rookie contract extension.
That's a little bit more than he got at Auburn.
I think so.
With one of those first NIL deals.
Smith is 22 years old. He averaged 12 points, 7 rebounds in a year that was disrupted by a broken left hand in January. Smith has struggled to find his consistency with the three-point shot, but he has flashed his potential in the postseason by counting 45% of his looks from that distance. He's the only player from the 2022 draft class to accumulate 2,500 points, 1,500 rebounds so far in their NBA careers. So Jabari Smith is going to get paid 5 years, $122 million.
Rockets. Who else did they pick up?
Kevin Durant.
Yeah, that was kind of a big one.
Yeah, that was the big
Are they one of the favorites now?
They'll be up there. I mean, they were good this year. They took the Warriors to 7 games in the postseason. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. You wonder how many years of KD you have left, but they'll certainly be one of the favorites.
Van Fleet's there, right?
Yes, he's coming back for another year. Mm-hmm.
How about that little NBA knowledge, Conrad?
I know. I'm impressed that you know who Fred Van Vliet is.
How about
That's
that?
good.
Sam Cassell?
I don't know if he's still on the
Is
Rockets.
Olajuwon still there?
No, he's not.
Mm-mm.
Drexler?
No, Clyde Drexler's not there either.
Man, he was really good. Yeah.
He was real good.
Remember Barkley?
Kenny Smith was really good with the Rockets.
I forget that Charles Barkley played with the Rockets.
Yep, Yao Ming's not walking through that door. Just not going to happen.
Janai Broom's wearing number 22. Did I say that right?
Is he?
For Philadelphia?
Okay.
Think so.
Very cool.
Yep. Speaking of the NBA, the U.S. District Attorney's Office is now investigating Detroit Pistons guard Malik Beasley on allegations of gambling related to NBA games and prop bets for the 2023-24 season. Beasley set a franchise record with 319 three-pointers in his lone Detroit season. He was poised to sign a 3-year, $42 million contract to stay with Detroit. Now, that's obviously up in the air. This is not the first time that Beasley has had legal troubles. He pled guilty to a felony charge related to making threats of violence and was sentenced to 120 days in jail. He served 78 days after being arrested in September of 2020 for brandishing a firearm at a family near his property. Now, if you remember, Toronto Raptors forward center Jonte Porter was banned for life by the NBA after he pled guilty to wire fraud linked to prop bets in the NBA. So that goes to our 3-man front Twitter poll question of the day. As we said, another NBA player has been accused of gambling related to games and prop bets. Excluding the NBA, which sport has the most players betting on their own sport? the options: Major League Baseball, NFL, college football, or college basketball. And as of this moment, the NFL, Conrad, at 39.2%, the majority of our listeners say they bet on their own sport more than any other.
Yeah, well, that's what I voted for was the NFL, and I think my question would be if you phrased it, which sport has the most people betting, not necessarily on their own sport, but in general, I think you might see the answers be a little bit different. But I think just based on the NFL and the track record of what we've seen, that seems to be where guys are more inclined to bet on their actual games as opposed to, college guys betting on NFL games or things.
We know that Phil Mickelson in his betting past, I wonder how many on the tour dabble in some of the gambling. It seems like that maybe that would be tougher to police.
I could see that being a thing in golf.
Well, every association has private investigators that dive deep into all of this. You sign some of your rights away once you become a professional.
But some of those just could be Phil on the first tee saying, hey, $100,000 low score.
I guess.
He likes to throw it around a little bit. No, he used to.
Major League Baseball came in at number 2 at 32%. And then college football and college basketball are tied right around 15% for those two.
I want my Braves investigated.
For throwing games?
Yes.
They're betting against themselves?
Yes.
All right.
That's
so
why Michael Harris's OPS is like 100.
Uh-huh.
All right. So we have another 3 days off the calendar.
It's over.
We've gone through this before. I mean, I'm just.
No, it's over. It's fun.
I mean, Barrett gives us this pumping
3
sunshine.
days from now, we're going to be right back where we were
Absolutely.
a week ago.
There is
No, we're not.
Things
We've
are
seen
back
it.
on
Guys,
track.
we've seen it enough.
We're going to sweep the Angels.
Yep.
We're back. Then the Orioles come into town.
They're bad.
They
They're
win.
bad, Landrum. Y'all should handle that one easy. They're bad.
Yeah, we lost 2 out of 3 to the Marlins. If you'll remember that.
But laugh all you want to. The Marlins just went 6-0 on the West Coast.
I was about to say the Marlins are better than the Orioles.
The Marlins are a game
Might
behind
be better
the Braves.
than the Braves.
Well, they're a game behind them in the standings.
They're about to prove it in the standings.
Mm-hmm. So Spencer Strider yesterday had another strong outing against the Phillies, but lost for just the second time in 10 career starts against the Phillies.
Awesome run support.
Gave up 2 runs, 5 hits, 7 innings, struck out 4, walked 3. So Atlanta has now lost 4 of their last 5, 6 of their past 10. The Phillies remain in first place in the NL East. They're now 10.5 games ahead of Atlanta. Braves are 8 games back in the wild card race. But the Braves are off today before they start a series on Tuesday against the Angels.
I'm just interested to see because he went on Barrett's podcast. I say I'm a Braves fan. So Alex Anthopoulos, our GM, said, we're going to buy. I can't wait to see what some of these buys are going to be.
Hey,
'Cause
Sean
you can't
Murphy
buy a
added
win.
a little value for himself this weekend.
Sean Murphy, yeah.
Yeah, he helped himself out.
Well,
But how many teams are going to spend capital?
sun shines
For a
on
catcher.
a dog's rear end every now and then. Conrad. So that was great. He swings out of his shoes at every pitch. He just so happened to meet the baseball
now
on
and then
those
he
2
hits.
occasions. Yeah. But it was solid. 451 feet, straightaway center field. Of course, nobody's on. But the Grand Slam was nice.
Yeah, it was. I saw this was, and I mean, doesn't make up for the loss, but did I see correctly? Trey Turner against Spencer Strider is 0 for his entire. It was like 0 for 25 or something.
He struggles.
After last night. That's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good player.
So then the question is, because we're about to hit into July, and then we're weeks away from the trade deadline.
This was without Bryce Harper being available too. So
Did you see the video of Strider and Bryce Harper talking during warm-ups?
Was it chippy or friendly?
It looked friendly. It definitely did not look, but Bryce definitely was like had his arm out and showing his hand and pointing to stuff on when he was talking to Strider. It was just them two.
show me again where I hit you. Let me see it.
Glad to see that made up.
Strider, he seems like he is a pacifist. he's not looking for trouble.
So you do have to ask the question, do you absolutely have a fire sale if you're the Braves? Because the roster construction has been a major fail.
Nobody wants Ozzie, so I don't know. Again, what are you going to get in return?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you got to clear roster space. I mean, at this juncture, you got to make some hard decisions on some of these guys moving forward because the roster you currently have doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. You got to do something. But is it going to show up with attendance? Are we going to get because their attendance has been great. There's people
attendance will fall off after the All-Star game.
People are still spending a lot of money going to Truist because it's a fun time, but I can barely bring myself to watch them.
Okay, so you're GM for a day. Which path would you take as a Braves fan? Do you want to go, hey, let's go all in, see if we can get something going at the All-Star break? Or are you at the point where it's
okay? So let's just pretend. Let's just pretend I can get rid of players right now, and I'm going to get something of equal or greater value in return without having to give up because there's not a whole lot to give up in the farm system.
Yeah. So you're talking
Ozzie Albies, thank you for your service. Enjoy your time at your new team.
Somebody makes you a fantastic offer for Austin Riley, like big time prospects. No.
That's the problem.
Okay.
Is Olsen, Riley, I'm keeping those guys. Acuna, obviously keeping them.
Can't get rid of him. Yeah.
Michael Harris, nobody's going to pay for that right now. But he would be gone. I'd keep Eli White around. I'd try to get another outfielder. Second baseman, that's a must. Sean Murphy, see ya. It's been fun.
The problem is that you don't have the other teams in Major League Baseball. They're not benevolent.
No.
Like, they don't care if your team, whether it's the Yankees, Cardinals, or Braves, are sucking. They don't care. So trying to get one-for-one value, that ain't real.
Ozuna, see ya.
Well, the hardest thing for y'all is your best value is probably in your rotation, but you don't want to get rid of those guys.
But, again, that's why you have to have a really hard conversation about a reset. Because the roster that you constructed, the roster that you paid a lot of money for a few years ago, because this was supposed to be the upside, and it hasn't delivered.
No.
So if you're the general manager, you have to take a long, hard look in the mirror because this is the team you constructed. You are going to have to pay for this. Now, they're ultimately going to give, a ring or a car or a TV like they did in New York to Snitker and tell him to hit the road as soon as the All-Star game's over with. But that's the deal. Now, no one, you're going to have to give up some of these big pieces to hopefully refurbish your minor league system that is trash, because it is. I'm just telling you the numbers.
Yeah. Well, that's why you need to go and Anthopoulos, take a page out of Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill's book.
But you're going to have to give up something like major league talent that is ready to go to get somebody's minor league dudes that are a couple years away that are gems in their system.
Yeah.
Because like you said, nobody's going to trade unless a contender has an injury at second base or a catcher goes down. And then all of a sudden, Sean Murphy becomes a valuable commodity to somebody. But for you just trading Albies or anybody else straight up, you're not going to get much in return. And you're going to be back to the same place that you were as your 8.5 games behind the wild card.
Who did the A's lose that year in Moneyball? Isringhausen.
Oh, when they were
Giambi, one of the
Jason
Giambis.
or Jason Giambi's brother.
And then there was another guy.
It's probably Mulder.
I don't know if it was.
But yeah, we're not trying to find a guy to replace these numbers. We're trying to find 3 guys.
We need guys that get on base and score runs.
Yeah, well,
that's been a real problem.
That helps.
And then when we're getting on base, they just can't score. You got to score runs.
Situational hitting is
because the thing of it is the Braves are not in a position to, okay, you only got one player currently that's ranked in the top 100. Are you going to give up Cametti for a rental? and you're 8.5 games back. There's 8 teams in front of you for the final. I mean, that makes no sense. Like,
No, it doesn't.
the only thing to consider is to shed payroll, which would be to get rid of Ozuna because this is last year of his contract, or you do something really bold and, you throw a name out there like Austin Riley.
No.
And you say, hey, what can we get for him? Like, everything is on the table except Pecunia. Like who could the return that you would get?
I was about to say, or a Schwellenbach who has years of control left. And
Oh
he's
my gosh.
He might be your most valuable
You
commodity.
guys are giving the only reasons that people are showing up to the ballpark.
Well, yeah.
You also have to keep in mind that all these tickets that have been purchased prior, because it's an all-star game. And you got all these people that go to Atlanta for vacation. But as soon as that all-star game's over with and you're still 10.5 games out and 11 or 12 games out of the wild card, that will dry up really quick.
Until y'all sweep the Yankees right after the All-Star break, and then it's back.
No, they're going to go 6-0 the rest of the week.
Probably.
And they'll be back.
Yeah, I wish you were right. You're wrong. There's no way.
Every Friday, Barrett's pumping sunshine that,
Well,
turning the corner. Here we go.
yeah. I was on that train for a while, but I've given up hope.
You've said that like a
I
half
know.
dozen times.
No, but I mean it this time, Pat.
Of course.
I'm giving up hope.
Okay.
The only thing I can hope for now is maybe introducing a new alternate uniform.
You can pull for Acuna to win the home run derby.
Bring me
That'd be
back the baby blues we used to wear on the road.
that would be cool.
The good news is
That get me excited.
Yeah.
The good news is that the Mets were outscored this weekend 30-4 by one of the worst teams in baseball and got swept by the Pirates.
Yeah.
So it could always be worse.
That's
They didn't even face Paul Skeens.
and that's something I have to tell myself. As bad as this year is, God, I could be a Mets fan.
It's very true. Very true. All right, more Reaction Monday. This is Jocks, 3-man front. It is 10:38 here on Reaction Monday. This is three-man front on Jocks. Disturbing story came out over the weekend. BYU quarterback Jake Retzlaff. He's anticipating a 7-game suspension for violating the school's honor code. Multiple sources told the Salt Lake City Tribune. So facing the prospect of missing more than half of the 2025 season, it's felt that Retzlaff is going to leave the program and he is going to go into the transfer portal. He threw for almost 3,000 yards last season, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, rushed for 400-plus yards, 6 touchdowns on the ground. There was a civil lawsuit that was filed in May in which he was accused of sexually assaulting a woman identified in court documents as Jane Doe. Supposedly, this happened in his Provo home in November of 2023. Through his attorney, the BYU quarterback immediately denied the sexual assault allegations. In his legal response filed on Friday, he said that he had consensual sex with the woman who was accused him of assaulting her. Now, the quarterback's case, the lawyers have asked for the case to be dismissed, but the filing in Utah's 3rd District Court would inevitably be considered by officials at BYU as a code of conduct unbecoming a member of the BYU student body. Among things, the code of conduct at BYU prohibits premarital sex and instructs students to live a chaste and virtuous life. We're going to talk to Jake Hatch from Salt Lake City in the 1 o'clock hour, but we do have breaking news that literally just happened seconds ago. The woman who accused BYU quarterback Jake Retzlaff of sexual assault in a civil suit has withdrawn her civil case. The paperwork has been filed to end the case.
Very interesting.
Interesting that when it becomes a big story like this, that goes away.
So his attorney on Friday in court documents admitted to a consensual relationship with this young woman, which would be a violation of BYU's code of conduct. And the stories last night was that he was going to go into the transfer portal and he was going to leave the school. Now, back in 2011, basketball player Brandon Davies was dismissed from the BYU team, which at the time was 27-2 and ranked number 3 in the country. He was suspended from the school, but he was reinstated in the fall because he was found that he had broken the code of conduct. Back in 1999, Reno Mahe was suspended from the school and forced to leave the football team. He transferred to a junior college and then later came back to BYU and re-enrolled. So those are the 2 other cases of so-called big-name athletes at BYU that have faced a suspension based on the code of conduct.
Well, sexual assault is very, very serious, and we all know that. But at the very least, if he chose to stay there, he has admitted to having consensual
relationship
with this young lady. So 7-game suspension would still stand.
So just 5 hours ago, it was being reported that he was going into the transfer portal, and now 5 minutes ago, the woman who accused the BYU quarterback of sexual assault is now withdrawing her claim.
Well, and the thing with that was, again, it just seemed kind of odd from the beginning, was that it was a civil lawsuit, but no criminal charges were ever filed against him. It was only a civil suit. And so that's where you had his attorney that came out and said, hey, no, we think that this person is trying to take advantage of someone who has now been deemed an NFL prospect and is maybe trying to get a little money out of that situation. So it's a horrible situation. Any type of allegation like that is incredibly serious, but I think it maybe puts up some flags for people when you have a situation like that and there's no criminal charges involved. It's only a civil matter.
Yeah.
That's a little different.
But so much of this is circumstantial, so it would be – you are right in that observation, but in this particular case, to say why she did or did not.
Well, no, we don't have all the evidence.
That'd be careless on our parts, but interesting.
So in the complaint, the BYU quarterback said that the two connected through social media, which led to her visiting Retzloff's apartment to play video games. In November of 2023, the woman arrived with a friend, and there were friends and teammates that were also present, according to the lawsuit. Later that evening, the woman's friend left, and so they started watching a movie together, and at some point they began to kiss, but Jane Doe did not want to do anything more, the lawsuit states. The BYU quarterback was accused of escalating the situation. Jane Doe tried to de-escalate the situation, attempted to slow things down, trying to pull away, saying, wait, she did not want to do anything sexual with him. This was in the complaint. The lawsuit says that the woman told the BYU quarterback, no, wait, stop, but that he continued to force himself on her after she tried to get up out of the bed. The lawsuit alleges that the BYU quarterback put his hands around her neck and proceeded to rape her. This was in the civil suit. In the suit, it says it hurt so bad and caused so much pain that Jane Doe passed out. Jane Doe remembers tears rolling down her face as she fought to breathe. A few days later, the woman visited the hospital where a rape kit was performed and pictures of her injuries were taken. The lawsuit says she was connected with Provo police, but did not initially provide the BYU quarterback's name.
Well, unless she comes out and recants any of that, I know that she's dropped the civil suit. I think that Mr. Retzloff, fair or unfair, because we don't know what happened, is going to be in that transfer portal like a lot of other student athletes for a long time. I cannot see, unless new evidence is brought to light, can't see anybody saying, yeah, let's take a flyer on this guy.
Well, I will just say this.
Nope.
Yeah, and this is a extremely serious allegation.
Yes, it is.
And we have seen examples in college football of a quarterback with a extremely disturbing and checkered past be given another opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just leave it at that. More three-man front. This is Jocks. Already this morning, Texas State, they have accepted an invitation to be a member of the Pac-12 Conference. Their Board of Trustees met this morning at around 9:34. They made it official. They're going to pay $5 million to leave the Sun Belt Conference. If they had waited till tomorrow, it would be an additional 5 on top of that. So it would have been $10 million. Quite a bargain. Half off sale in the Pac-12.
Take all your Sunbelt gear and put it in a box.
So since we were talking about this disturbing legal situation out in Salt Lake City, who Jake Hatch will join the show at 1 o'clock, give us the very latest, because now the young woman has being reported that she is filing the paperwork to withdraw her civil suit against Retzlaff. So we'll see if that is indeed the case. I was unaware, but the Louisiana Supreme Court on Friday dealt a big-time blow to former LSU head coach Ed Orzeron. This is crazy that this went all the way to the Louisiana Supreme Court. But the Louisiana Supreme Court ruled Friday that former LSU head coach Ed Orzeron owes his ex-wife Kelly half of his buyout from the school. In a 5-2 ruling, the court said Kelly Orzeron should receive $8.13 million from the buyout, since the two were married when Ed signed his contract extension at LSU back in January of 2020. Orzeron was rewarded with a new contract just after the Tigers were undefeated in 2019, won the national championship. Orzeron filed for divorce 6 weeks after he signed his extension, though his contract was not officially approved by the school's board until divorce proceedings had begun. Orzeron received nearly $17 million from the school to go packing and to move to South Beach.
Man, they didn't give him the Eric Spoelstra treatment. If you remember that, the Heat gave him a new contract and waited until he got divorced to give it to him.
Yep. Now, the Supreme Court's decision reversed a 2024 lower court ruling in favor of Ed Orzeron. 3 judges who ruled on the case were temporary replacements because of recusals. So because of that, that's why this got kicked all the way up to the Louisiana Supreme Court, where in a 5-2 ruling, Ed Orzeron owes his ex-wife $8.13 million.
That makes the video you sent us this weekend all that much better. Doesn't seem to be too bothered by it.
If you did not see the video over the weekend, he was in New Orleans at a wedding, and he just starts taking his shirt off, and he's dancing.
Yeah.
He was having a good old time.
Nothing like a good old Louisiana wedding with a former LSU head coach that won yourself a national championship.
No, it's poetic because he's going to lose his shirt. It's 8.1. Surely he in the back of his mind, he was advised, look.
Hey, maybe hold some of this aside to,
I don't know how much, because he brags about that place on South Beach.
Yeah.
Like every single interview I see him do, he goes on and on. 37th floor, overlooking the beach. Get up late, go down, work out on the beach with all those muscle heads down there in South Beach, if you've never been there.
Does he still does he now encourage Brittany? I think that's her name. Or Bridget. I can't remember. His girlfriend. Does he encourage her?
I think you're thinking of Aaron Rodgers' wife now. She's
No.
Brittany, right?
No, this girl's
guy.
last name was Fontaine, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah.
Was that the one that he was doing the videos with her in bed with him? They were clothed, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. But does he encourage her to maybe go start looking for a job?
Brandy
Brandy.
With an I
With
or
an
a
I?
Y?
It's with an I.
Brandy's a fine girl.
with a Y.
It's with a Y? Oh.
Brandy Nicole.
They're not married though, right? Just still.
They were engaged.
Oh, okay.
No, it is not the, because the girl that you were talking about in the pic, she was significantly younger than him. This is a different person.
Oh,
Okay. Okay. I was going to say, he lets fiance know, hey, we're not going to have the Bezos-like wedding that you had hoped for.
Just about everyone was at that wedding, from what I could see.
We're going to trim it back just a little bit.
So I guess he decided to let off a little steam after the 8.13 ruling against him.
Yeah.
We're going cash bar.
Have a few about to say have a few drinks and dance the pain away, right? Shirtless.
He was having a good time.
He would be a great Stallions fan.
He would be a great guy.
He's
You know,
really
you have
good.
seat fillers at awards. You
Yes.
just needed
Yes.
somebody charismatic to really liven up the reception.
Remember I told you he was staying at the hotel of Sean McVay's wedding.
Yeah.
The head coach of the Los Angeles Rams.
I love it.
And he just was there at the hotel and he decided he was gonna crash the wedding.
That's what he should do. Just charge people like $2,000 and he'll show up at your wedding and be the life of the party.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
I'm ordained in 8 different states.
He might need it now. Checkbook a little bit lighter than it was on Friday.
I play the drums too.
We begin hour number 2 on this holiday week. We'll be here through Wednesday. off Thursday and Friday. 2 weeks from today, we'll be in Atlanta, Georgia for SEC Football Media Days. Headlines this hour. Texas State, they have accepted an invitation. They will be moving to the Pac-12 Conference out of the Sun Belt. No word yet on what the Sun Belt will do in regards to backfilling as a member of the conference. Also, this story out of Salt Lake City, Utah, in which the starting quarterback for BYU, Jake Retzlaff, he was accused in a civil suit of sexual assault. ESPN is reporting that both Retzlaff's attorney and the attorney for the Jane Doe, they have filed paperwork this morning to dismiss the civil suit. We'll go to Salt Lake City in the 1 o'clock hour. We'll find out the very latest. Tomorrow, a new era begins in Auburn athletics as Auburn University will be the first day under a new agreement with Nike. At 11:30, joining us on the program is going to be Clint Richardson. He runs the website Auburn Uniform Database. Just a fantastic site if you ever want to go down a rabbit hole when it comes to uniforms. And I was reading on his website. I was unaware of this, Landrum, and of course, I was in the business in 1994, but I do not remember this almost happening. Supposedly, they had a handshake agreement Auburn did with Nike because Alabama went to Nike in 1994. And apparently Nike was ready to make Auburn a Nike school. And they had a handshake agreement for Auburn to leave Russell to go to Nike. But Russell in Alexander City, that's about 70 miles away from Auburn, something like that?
Sure. I was thinking more, yeah, it might be. I would always just do it with time, like 45 minutes.
The president of Auburn at the time, William Muse, and even some state politicians got involved because they were concerned what that would do to Russell's business. And Russell had been a longstanding Alabama corporation. And so the handshake agreement that they had with Nike was never signed. And so they stayed with Russell for a few more years into the early 2000s before the new deal with Under Armour.
Officially, according to Google Maps, 39.4 miles,
okay.
46 minutes.
Okay, there you go. Were you aware that they had that deal with Nike in the 90s?
No.
And it was never signed because there was going to be too much political fallout. Terry Bowden, who was the one that was going to get the deal with Nike, he was also criticized with the deal with Nike. Bowden was paid $135,000 as an Auburn University employee. The rest of his salary as head coach was from outside income. Now, coaches' salaries back then were not as public record or easily attainable as they are now. So, yeah, Auburn was going to be a Nike school right after Alabama left Russell to go to Nike in 1994. And they decided to stay with Russell up until early 2000s.
I remember the blowback on one of the uniforms that they got, and I'm trying to remember the year, but it was because of the font of the names, a lot like we heard with the Nike baseball jerseys last year, and the font of the numbers. And then the one year where they went with the stripe down the football pant, and it was angled, where it had like a sharp point, didn't come down where it met evenly at the bottom of the pant. I know people are probably like, what? But
well, it's also interesting because this is a 10-year deal with Nike for Auburn. It will put Auburn as one of the top paying schools in all of college sports to be a Nike school.
Yeah. Look, to some degree, everybody's a uniform geek. And if you want to admit that you want to say that you're not, but let your school break out some ugly uniforms that you hate.
Oh, yeah. That won't sit well. So if you remember back when the Nike deal is now taking over the Under Armour deal, the Under Armour deal has decreased in value by $8.6 million because there's an equity component in the deal with Under Armour. So back in 2015, Auburn and Under Armour extended their partnership through 2025, It was a 9-year deal at $78.2 million in total value. As part of the arrangement, the school agreed to accept $10 million in Under Armour stock, which was supposed to be paid out over the life of the contract, a bet that the apparel company would continue its rapid growth, therefore increasing the school's compensation. Needless to say, it has not worked out for Auburn. The contract was signed in September of 2015, less than a week after Under Armour. Their stock hit an all-time high of $54.70. Would you like to take a guess what Under Armour stock closed on Friday? Auburn signs the deal, $54.70.
$18.30.
$34.50.
$6.89.
Oh, God.
So Auburn signs the deal with Under Armour, $54.70, and they're given about $10 million worth of Under Armour stock. That stock is now valued at $6.89 per share. You can do the math. So that stock is now worth around $1.4 million. It was $10 million. $1.4 million. So Auburn has lost $8 to $9 million under this Under Armour contract.
I think about some of the Under Armour deals that they did away from football, and one that jumps to mind would be Jordan Spieth. And
I think he still has
his Under Armour deal. He got paid or is getting paid a ton of money to wear that.
Do you remember that Auburn was the first major school to sign up with Under Armour? First one.
I remember when Auburn went New Balance in basketball shoes. It actually might have been New Balance. Do you remember that across the board?
What I'm trying to remember, too, because you brought up Spieth. I know Steph Curry's an Under Armour guy. I don't know what else they have.
Well, they have certainly divested. You remember the big deal they had with UCLA? They had to buy out of that one.
Mm-hmm.
Some other schools that were Under Armour that have since moved on to either Adidas or Nike. So Auburn had been with Russell Athletics before they cut the deal with Under Armour for 75 years until Jay Jacobs made the decision in 2005 to switch to Under Armour. Jacobs recalled on a podcast at auburnundercover.com the challenging nature of the decision, including a personal call from then Alabama Governor Bob Riley. This is a direct quote from the former AD, Jay Jacobs. Governor Riley called and said, Russell's been with y'all for 75 years. But I had to make a business decision, he said. It's good for Auburn. I support it. It was tough, but it was the right call. So you had the governor calling Jay Jacobs because he was worried about Russell Corp. I want to say that Berkshire Hathaway bought Russell soon after. I think it was in the 2006, something like that, when they were sold. And there were no more the local tie-in there in Alexander City.
Apparently, by the way, back in 2005 is when Auburn went away from Nike football shoes and they went to New Balance. And then you had the complaints about the New Balance. You get those. It's not just New Balance specific.
Well, I can tell you that Hewitt-Trussville used to be an Under Armour school. And I can just speak for my son who played football. And for those that on the football team that went through Under Armour, let's just say that they were very quick to change cleats.
Away from Under Armour?
That is correct.
Yeah. I got several pairs of Under Armour shoes, but I don't play football.
Those were all the rage when I would have been, should have been like 2012, early 2010s. I feel like that's when they got really, really popular for a couple years, and then.
But in all honesty, the only reason that I have Under Armour shoes is because the teams that I'm affiliated with, they're under Under Armour and that umbrella.
Well, starting tomorrow, it will be Nike for the next 10 years for Auburn University. And we will talk to the man that knows it all when it comes to Auburn athletics, and their gear, their kits, their uniforms. Clint Richardson will join us at the bottom of the hour, and we'll get the very latest from him on what he thinks, if anything. Will they be an exact same template that they wear with Under Armour? We're going to switch it up a little bit.
In college football, I love just a really fat font when it comes to a number. Fatter font for the number. Big fat numbers. I don't know why. Ohio State has a fat number. That's what I think about. It just looks good on the jersey.
It does.
Because back in the day, before you were alive, Conrad, schools in this state, they didn't have the names on the back of the jerseys. That's all. You had to be a diehard fan. You couldn't do it these days with the transfer portal and the double double numbers.
I was about to say the double numbers on offense and defense.
No, you have to have that name on the back. I'm surprised we haven't had a lawsuit, name, image, and likeness, requiring teams to put the name on the back of a jersey. Because you're depriving a student athlete of not having their name out there.
Well, it's just like you're playing the old college football video games, right? When they couldn't have the players' names on there, it's just, well, I know.
We know who that is.
I know this is Greg McElroy, number 12. Okay,
Well, you start going through the measurables.
Well, of course.
Let's be honest. Not for just Greg. It's obvious. That's Ryan Williams.
Yeah.
He's faster than everybody on this game. He can jump higher. He never drops a ball. Always fun. That'll be a good conversation with Clint at 11:30.
Been telling you about Abide Roofing. Need to take advantage of that free roof inspection. Had a little bit of respite. Not a lot of rain over the weekend. A couple of places had some micro bursts, but there's no strings attached to the Abide Roofing free roof inspection. No pressure at all. Travis Lloyd and the outstanding local roofing team, they're ready to come to your house and give a free look on top of your roof. They will get on. They'll check your shingles. They'll check everything out to make sure everything is good to go. And if they do find a problem, if it's a small problem, they can easily fix it. If it's a larger problem, like a full roof replacement like I had to have, they can take care of that as well. I 100% trust these guys. They're licensed, bonded, insured. They're the real deal. A few years back, talking from experience, that new roof had to go through my insurance company, and Travis Lloyd and the rest of the team, they can handle that as well. Your roof protects everything you care about. Don't wait for that leak to show up and create a bigger problem with your investment. Be proactive. Call Abide Roofing today, 205-922-7134. That's 205-922-7134. Or simply go to the website, abideroof.com.
Reaction Monday, that means you react. We'll get to the Jocks text line. As we continue, it's three-man front on Jocks.
We will get to the text line brought to you by Courtesy GMC 205-834-9450. Your calls are also welcome, 1-800-239-WJOX. Appreciate everybody taking us along during their summer holiday season. We'll be here through Wednesday. Best Dubs on Thursday and Friday.
You can take along all the great products from our friends at Mystic Beverage. If you need a pick-me-up, a lift, maybe you need to elevate your vibe this 4th of July holiday, you can do it with our friends at Mystic Beverage. It is cannabinoid-infused sparkling water that you can find at your local Piggly Wiggly, and different products that you can choose from. The lift is my favorite. It's got the green coffee bean extract to pick you up during the day when you need it the most, or the holidays when you're with family and friends. Also the Nirvanic, the High Hills Delta 9. You got 4 delicious flavors. It's Mystic Beverage, mysticbeverage.com. Made in Blount County, Alabama. Once again, find it at your local Piggly Wiggly.
So Alabama football picked up a couple of commitments later last week, and then over the weekend, you had on Friday 3-star Hillcrest Tuscaloosa linebacker Zay Hall. He committed to the University of Alabama. And then yesterday afternoon, about 1:45, 5-star linebacker Xavier Griffin. He commits to the University of Alabama over Texas, Ohio State, and Florida State. Griffin is the number 1 linebacker, number 8 overall player in the 2026 recruiting class. So a big weekend for Alabama football. If you listen to this program and hear Rodney Orr every Thursday, he telegraphed this and gave us the news that this was most likely going to happen, and it did.
Yes, it did. Your texts have been coming in, as they traditionally do on Mondays, reaction to what happened over the weekend or what happened just this morning. 205-834-9450. We take you to the text line now, and there was a trade in the NFL. You got Minkah going back to Miami. What's the details of that trade, Conrad?
Let me get the exact details, but yeah, the big story is Minkah Fitzpatrick is going back to Miami, and the Miami Dolphins are sending Jalen Ramsey to the Steelers. So the full details, the Steelers are going to get Jalen Ramsey, tight end Jonnu Smith, and a 2027 7th-round pick. The Miami Dolphins are getting a 2027 5th-round pick and Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Minkah and Tua.
Yeah, just interesting that he wasn't very happy his first time in Miami, and that's why he ended up in Pittsburgh, and so now he's back there. But hopefully they'll do a split jersey where I can get like a Fitz-Aloha jersey or something like that.
That would be good.
Yeah, something like that.
Clinton Richardson coming up at the bottom of the hour, talking Auburn uniform changes and what the switch to Nike could mean. Posey says Auburn should go all white and orange helmet like their big brother Clemson. Ooh, Posey. Auburn with a lake. Johnny says, my daughter and son-in-law just moved to San Marcos and both work for TSU, and they love it. Well, good for them.
Okay, there.
Thank you, Johnny. We appreciate it. Dean texts
see
in.
a lot of the West Coast here soon.
That's right. Dean texts into the show is asking in Moneyball who were the players that they let go or they couldn't afford to re-sign. Johnny Damon was another one. Isringhausen. Jason Giambi. And then someone said Chavez.
Eric Chavez. Yeah.
I thought Jesse Chavez.
Miguel Tejada was also part of that.
Yeah.
Hudson.
No, yeah, Tim Hudson was on that team.
Barry
Miguel Tejada
Zito.
was so good. Oh, man.
Isringhausen ended up being our closer for the Cardinals.
And then you had the guy how did you pronounce his last name? It was the character that Chris Pratt played.
Oh, yeah, he was a first baseman, right?
He was a catcher.
He was a catcher.
And then they moved him to first base.
That's right.
Because he didn't have the zip on the ball anymore.
That's right. They were trying to teach him how to pick balls at first base. Yeah, I can't remember who he was supposed to be.
BYU quarterback situation. In case you missed it, it is being reported that the civil suit by the young lady has been dropped. Someone said paid her hush money. Lewis says, yeah, I don't know if Lewis was trying to be funny. I'm not going to read it. He might not have been his defense.
No, he was. I know exactly what he was going for.
Drew says Braves don't make bold moves, so that's not their MO. No, they don't.
First time for everything, though, right?
I mean,
Yeah, he just said we're going to be buyers. He didn't say we're going to be buyers of big big-time stars.
I mean, it was a bold move getting Olsen a couple years ago.
Mhm.
It wasn't trade
It
deadline.
was a great move.
Murphy, that was bold.
Max says, hey, guys, I just heard the situation regarding this BYU quarterback. This entire situation smells of a confidential settlement. Such a settlement would result in immediate dismissal of any lawsuit, and likely that confidentiality clause would prohibit her from discussing further any allegations to include with authorities. Such provisions in a confidential settlement are suspect, but with enough money is involved, people stop talking. I've been practicing plaintiff's litigation for 27 years. This is how it works. The defendant pays enough money, and we go away. Confidentially, and lawsuit gets dismissed. Thank you so much, Max. I could tell when I started reading it, this is a lawyer.
It's just interesting, though, because like we talked about, right, if you're the quarterback, you would want information to come out that everything that was in the statement from the female was false, because even if you settle it and it goes away, you're still going to be viewed as untouchable, and you're probably not ever playing football again.
Someone asking the question, didn't Russell Athletic have every Major League Baseball team at one time?
Yes.
All of them?
Even your team.
No, I'm sure they had a special deal somewhere.
Someone chimes in, I feel like Under Armour's football brand, shoes, apparel, lived and died with Cam Newton's career. 2012 through 2016 was the heyday, which follows Auburn's last contract it signed with him. Maybe something to it.
He did help him. No doubt about it.
I think Under Armour's stock has split 5 times, so it may be worth a little more. Drake says, guys, you agree to win a national championship, you should have at least a top 10 recruiting class.
Doesn't hurt.
I would say the numbers would probably back that up.
Yep. You can get to a national title game without a top 10 recruiting class.
Yeah, TCU. And you can lose by 58 points in that in said title game.
Back to Under Armour. There must have been a marketing change, says this listener, with Under Armour, because every commercial in the 2010-2015 window was we must protect this house. Now, outside of Spieth, I couldn't tell you what they have done marketing-wise. It's definitely slowed down. Click, clack, click, clack. Allen says, let's be honest, Cam Newton put Under Armour on the map during his prime years. And more text we'll get to throughout the show. Thanks for your interaction.
We were talking about the Braves earlier. They're off tonight. They do not play until tomorrow against the Angels.
Hallelujah.
Aaron Judge had a big day yesterday for Conrad's Yankees. 2 more home runs. He now has 30.
Stupid.
Only
Hey,
player
he's in a slump right now.
Only player in Major League Baseball history to have at least 30 home runs and 50 walks prior to July in back-to-back seasons. Never happened until yesterday. He passed Lou Gehrig for third most multi-homer games in Yankees history. He now has 44 multi-homer games.
He's also the only player to have 30 or more home runs before July in 4 seasons. Did it this year, last year, and 2 other years. Pretty good.
I mentioned the Mets earlier. The Mets are now 3-13 in their last 16 games. Not only were they swept over the weekend, it happened against the 35-50 Pirates. Pittsburgh, the lowest scoring team in Major League Baseball, outscored the Mets 30-4. Then the entire baseball world suffered a significant loss as former Pittsburgh Pirate and Cincinnati Red slugger Dave Parker died Saturday at the age of 74. This is very sad. Parker was just weeks away from his formal induction into Cooperstown, New York. He was voted last December by the Hall of Fame's Classic Baseball Era Committee after a much-debated candidacy gathered significant momentum over recent years. If you have never seen this clip before, I strongly recommend that you do a search on YouTube for Dave Parker 1979 All-Star Game. He had 2 throws from right field that was unbelievable. He nails Brian Downing at home plate, the former California Angel, on a direct line. It was unbelievable, his throw from right field to nail Downing at the plate. Gary Carter was the catcher. Of course, a friend of mine this morning, we were talking about that video clip. And of course, it would be ruled illegal today because Gary Carter did not provide a sliding lane for Brian Downing. And then the other play in the game, he throws out a runner at third base after he had lost a fly ball in the Kingdome ceiling. But then he was able to rebound and gunned a guy out at third. If you watched those two clips, this dude had a cannon. One of the best throws you're going to find when he threw out Downing at home plate. Go check it out if you've never seen it.
Nicknamed the Cobra.
That's right. Part of those famous Pittsburgh Pirate teams with Willie Stargell, Dave Parker. Finished up his career with the Reds, but man, he was a force back in the old National League East days when the Pirates and Phillies and Cardinals and Expos and Mets were all in the same division.
Rest in peace.
Yep. So it's just sad that he was supposed to be inducted into the Hall of Fame in a couple weeks, and at least he passed knowing that he was a Major League Baseball Hall of Famer.
Yeah, shouldn't have taken this long.
No, not at all. Coming up next, Clint Richardson from the Auburn Uniform Database will join us. What's next for Auburn uniform-wise now that Nike takes over tomorrow? That's next on Three Man Front. So a new era for Auburn athletics begins tomorrow with a new 10-year contract with Nike. 20 years at Under Armour. Before that, about 75 years with Russell Athletic. And joining us now on the Higginbotham Hotline, a guy that knows everything in the world that you can imagine when it comes to Auburn aesthetics. And I'm talking about Clint Richardson. You need to go to his website. It's the Auburn Uniform Database. It's an incredible site. You can go down many rabbit holes. And Clint joins us now on the program. Clint, thanks for hammering out a couple minutes with us. This is a very interesting time if you're an Auburn fan.
It is, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
All right, so let's start a little easy question. For those that might not know your story, when did you become absolutely fixated on Auburn aesthetics, especially when it comes to uniforms?
I was always kind of interested in just the aesthetics of sports. Growing up, my brother and I would play GameCube and NCAA, NFL, even the NASCAR games, and we spent more time in the creative teams than we did actually playing the game. So that's really where that came from. And the summer after my freshman year at Auburn, which was the 2012-2013 season, I was back home in Huntsville and I needed a summer project. So I knew that there were a lot of different Auburn basketball uniforms, and that late 90s, early 2000s era was just kind of muddy in what uniforms were worn when, and I really wanted to figure that out for me. So the site actually started as the Auburn Basketball Uniform Database, and then that fall was obviously the 2013 season, and there were just a lot of intricacies about that season uniform-wise, and the website just immediately expanded. It's like, if this has to cover football, we've got to talk about more than just documenting the basketball team. So since then, the website has grown to cover 7 team sports, playing surfaces. We've got a history of bowl game fields, Jordan-Hare Stadium fields, Auburn Arena, Beardy's, court designs, and just all sorts of stuff. So it's been a fun rabbit hole, like you mentioned, and it's, the site turns 12 in just a couple of weeks. So it's been a fun decade plus of just documenting Auburn uniforms.
Clint, it's fascinating for guys like me and Pat because we nerd out. We have our college football helmet collections. We've got jerseys. Just appreciate a lot of the things that you appreciate. Is this specific to just Auburn, or for you, do you kind of geek out on uniforms in general, no matter whose it is?
In general, yeah, I enjoy uniforms across the broad spectrum. Just, read uniwatch.com every day. I'm actually on the forums of sportslogos.net and diving into some details there. I personally track uniforms for the Jacksonville Jaguars as well, and I've at times have done South Alabama, Troy, and UAB, but those have fallen off the wagon recently. But I like having all that information right here and right available. I like being able to definitively say Auburn has never played a team who wore pink uniforms or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or the last time Auburn wore blue and the opposing team wore green was here. So that's kind of just, all of this entire website is just, I have a question, I'm curious about it, and I'm going to just dive into that rabbit hole as deep as I can. And I enjoy it for everybody. I just enjoy the aesthetics of athletics and how they evolve over the years, how different teams have kind of embraced different uniforms and just those different eras over the years of uniform design.
Clint, outside of Auburn, if I ask you another football program in the SEC where you really just appreciate their uniform, their look, who would that be?
Oh, man. In the SEC is such a strong conference uniform-wise, and I think I would have to say LSU. Just, I love the white at home and the purple for the occasional non-conference games. Brian Kelly has kind of messed with that a little bit last year, and they threw out as many combinations as they possibly could. I would like to see them reel that back in, but I love LSU's look. I think Florida's got a classic look as well. Tennessee looks good. Vanderbilt and Kentucky and Mississippi State kind of hit or miss depending on what design they're wearing that year. Ole Miss has really embraced mixing and matching and as many combinations as they can as well. But if I had to pick a number 2 team uniform-wise, I think it would have to be LSU at the moment.
Clint Richardson joining us, Auburn Uniform Database. Go to the website. It's incredible. Just details galore in regards to the history of Auburn athletics. All right, so let's talk about this 20-year tenure with Under Armour. What grade would you give the last 20 years in regards to the look and the kits and just the overall look that Auburn had under the Under Armour agreement?
I think Auburn had a very solid look. If we're looking for a letter grade, I would probably say a B+. I think Under Armour's templates are kind of one issue. You look at the 2012 to 2014 football team when they had the short stripes on the shoulder or the tapering pointed stripe on the pants. That wasn't an Auburn design change. That was an Under Armour template change that forced the design. And then you've got baseball wearing 2 one-off uniforms in 2016, I believe, with stripes on the shoulder, stripes on the pants. That it wasn't a good look. Even baseball's early 2009 to 2012 uniforms with the Creed Simpson era with those weird stripes on the chest and on the sides and down the pants. It's been a little hit or miss, but I think Auburn especially has really solidified what that brand of a uniform looks like in the last 10 years maybe. You look at Auburn soccer with the striped sash across the front. It's been in place since 2014, but it's seen many different iterations over the years. I think they've had 5 different uniform sets that carry that same stripe. Football, of course, was always going to be traditional. Baseball is moving back to a traditional look right now. Basketball has kind of gone back and forth between crazy to traditional and simple. So I think that Under Armour, for the most part, did a really good job of providing Auburn with that traditional look that Auburn and Auburn's fans would expect to see on the field.
Clint, what are your thoughts on just recently going back to the orange face mask and then adding the white face mask? Just for you personally, how does that work?
The orange face mask is my all-time favorite Auburn look. And, when I started the site, even before that, just looking at old pictures of Bo Jackson and those teams in the 80s, I always loved the orange face mask look. I thought it just added such a nice pop of color. So when they brought those back, I was ecstatic. That was my Christmas, and I still want to see them every single game possible. The white face mask are a fun alternate look. I think it adds just a nice transition for the Auburn uniform so that you kind of get best of both worlds. You get the traditional look, but you also satisfy that itch to do something different. So with 3 different face mask colors, that actually adds a lot of different look combinations that Auburn can do. And I'm personally still hoping that we see the white face mask with the blue jerseys for a home game once. I don't think they're going to do that, but that's the final combination, between face mask, jersey color that we haven't seen yet. So I really like it, and I think if you do like the alternate uniform plan down the road, if that does come to fruition, like the face mask kind of inched that door open just a little bit.
All right, so I got to ask you, because I've read your articles on the subject, and it's a hot topic even on this radio show at times, is the orange jerseys for football. Do you like that idea? And historically speaking, it has happened before, and it's not a slam dunk that Auburn has lost all these games wearing a orange jersey.
I think the orange jerseys do have a place in a modern Auburn football uniform rotation. I personally would like to see like one game a year where Auburn does something different. I think that uniforms can help tell the history of your school, of your team. And Auburn has a very rich history, a very rich uniform history, and loves to tout the history of this university and this program. So I think it kind of fits this program very well. Let's do it for like a homecoming, a cupcake, kind of the equivalent of the old pay-per-view games. Like, it's not going to be a nationally televised game. It's not going to be the biggest game in the world. If it's going to be a game where we've got families coming because it's cheap tickets and almost a guarantee that you're going to spend the afternoon at Tumors, like, let's throw something else in there just for a little bit of fun. And we can do, just the orange drop shadows from the 90s, or the orange jerseys, or even we can go back to 1939 and throw in green jerseys. But specifically for the orange jerseys, I actually really like it. I think that the Barfield era is very misconstrued. I have been told for years that Auburn has never won in orange, or that Auburn always got demolished wearing orange. And it's simply not true. The Barfield era saw 4 orange jersey games, and Auburn went 2-1-1 in that time frame. And that includes a tie against number 10 Georgia and a loss to the eventual national champions, Georgia. So I think that the selective memory that a lot of Auburn fans have of that era kind of construes what they think of them. It was not as bad as people think, record-wise. None of the games were actually a demolishing. That one loss to Georgia was a 10-point loss, and it was one of those games where it was close. The score doesn't tell how close the game actually was. So I think there is place for an orange jersey in today's Auburn football uniform.
With Auburn making the switch to Nike, how many recognizable changes, tweaks will Auburn fans be able to tell on the football uniform in particular?
I don't think you're going to see a lot of big design changes. So I think the biggest change that you'll see is simply just the template and, of course, the Nike logo on the shirt. Nike's current template, the Vapor Fuse, has a couple of extra panels that we might not be used to. It's got a big cow catcher style collar on the front. And I know a lot of Auburn fans have been wanting to see the logo return to the collar, even in the button style that it was worn in the 90s and early 2000s. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to keep the copper plate chest mark on the front. It might be a little lower because of the template design. It might be a little bit bigger as well. So I don't think you're going to see any, the common person is not going to really notice a big difference when it comes to Auburn's football uniforms this year.
That is Clint Richardson. You need to go to his website, auburnuniforms.com. He is the aficionado when it comes to Auburn athletics and their aesthetics over the history of the university. Clint, this is a fun conversation. We really appreciate you taking time out. Tomorrow's a big day for Auburn as they make the move to Nike. Appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll catch up again very soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. That's Clint Richardson joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
They need to leave those shadow boxes. I saw your reaction when he said that.
Not a fan of those.
Oh, no. Those were bad.
I wasn't a fan
with the Tiger Eyes logo on the pants.
I wasn't a fan of those, just like I was not a fan of the drop shadow for the Georgia jerseys. Remember when Georgia did that?
Yep, they sure did.
Just not a fan of that.
Don't need it. All right, we'll continue. A lot of your reaction here on a Monday, a Reaction Monday, 3-man front on Jocks. 11:48, three-man front. Fun visit with Clint Richardson, Auburn football uniform database. If you missed any of that, you can find it. JocksFM.com, the three-man front podcast. One of our listeners was asking about Auburn and Louisville. If I remember, that was the Jeremy Johnson era beginning against Louisville when he threw it to the other team a lot. And that was not what Auburn fans expected. But they did wear the orange socks with the orange shoes in that particular game. They said ask Clint, but don't have to. That is what they wore because I'm pulling up images from that game. But, yeah, that can be found if you're just a uniform geek. But Auburn officially making the switch to Nike, and that begins tomorrow with their new contract, Pat Smith.
75 years under the Russell brand, provided all the uniforms. Then they went to Under Armour for 20 years. Now they're on to Nike for 10 years. That's the current contract, making Auburn one of the highest paid schools by Nike. Do not have that number, but just been told by numerous people that it would make Auburn in one of the top schools in the country. And I've read some stuff that Clint's written before on his website, because that is one of those things. It's kind of like gaslighting the orange jersey situation at Auburn, where a lot of people would say, we never have won a game wearing an orange jersey. Every time we wore an orange jersey, we got killed. Well, you just heard Clint.
It's not true.
2-1-1, 4 times. I guess it was just the fact that it was under the Barfield era, which was not a very good one for Auburn football. But yeah, 2-1-1, including wins against Georgia.
A lot of schools have gone away from the helmet stickers, like on the back of the helmet, where it would be for a good game, big time play, tackle,
like Ohio State does.
Yeah, like they have with the Buckeye.
Used to.
Yeah, Auburn did it back in the early '80s, if I remember. Alabama did they did it too? I think. I know that Georgia, they had the dog bones. Do they still have the dog bones?
I don't think Alabama's ever done it.
Yeah. I don't remember Alabama doing that.
Okay. Well, you wouldn't. This would have been, well, you would because you're a big fan. But this would have happened, I think, in the same time, and that would have been the early 80s. Maybe they didn't, but.
What did Auburn put on theirs?
This one, according to the database, shows the eagle that they had.
I do remember that now.
That's cool.
A little eagle sticker for a good player.
I do remember that now.
However, you got one of those. But, yeah. Text line is open, 205-834-9450. And somebody reminds us that a loss looks the same no matter the uniform. My Braves have like 6 good-looking uniforms, but they still stink, LOL.
So since we are talking about uniforms,
They do.
and we're going down that rabbit hole, let's talk about the Braves for a minute. So for you, what is their best look?
It's the Saturday look. The City Connect, Hank Aaron-esque.
The A?
Well, I like the one that says Braves. That's the jersey that I got, the Braves across the chest.
But they don't wear that one, though. They wear the A.
They wear the A.
Okay.
But if they would, but the template is the same. It's got the white with the blue that comes up on the sleeves. The red, I don't mind the red. This year, variation with the blue. Instead of having the gray trim, now they have the red trim on that blue uniform. And the grays, the whites, and they had the cream color, but I have not seen that for the home uniform. I don't think in maybe a couple of years. But the baby blues that they wore on the road, Pat, back in the day, and a lot of major league teams did, but I thought that was a good look.
Back when Chuck Tanner was the head man, the manager?
Yep. Remember Gene Garber?
Yep.
The one with that on?
Biff Pocoroba.
This listener says, say the Auburn program is struggling without saying the Auburn program is struggling. Let's talk about uniforms, guys. Well, the reason we are is because they're changing uniform manufacturers. But if there is something else that you would like to talk about, please suggest it.
And in this day and age of athletic departments, they've always been extremely frugal. Especially now, having to pay players every single dime that they can get And all indications are Nike is paying them handsomely.
Well, and you
for
don't
this
think
contract.
that this helps with, I mean, there's kids out there that, hey, I want to go play for a Nike school.
Better believe it.
This stuff matters.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it mattered so much to Alabama the last time that they re-upped their contract. Phil Knight flew down here himself to Tuscaloosa and had a conversation because there were rumors that Alabama was looking to leave Nike. That'd have been a big one.
Yeah. Glad they stayed.
Of course, Notre Dame earns more than anybody off the uniforms.
Just a common theme for them, making more money than than other programs.
And you know who their supplier is.
Yes.
Someone asking or saying, I thought Alabama put a little Bear Bryant houndstooth hat on their helmets at one time for great plays and great games.
Oh, maybe they did.
We'll keep the text going throughout the show. 205-834-9450.
What about this? So you give out a game ball every game, right? How about instead the next weekend, that player wears a black helmet for Alabama. So you know, oh, that was the MVP of the last game.
Back in the old days, you used to wear
saying.
different colored helmets depending on what position you played.
Goalies get to do it in soccer.
You're right, they do.
Liberos or liberos.
Yeah, they wear
Right.
the different jersey in volleyball.
In
Yeah.
volleyball. I like that. This is a way to get that black helmet on the field for you, Conrad.
It is 12 noon across the great state of Alabama. Thanks for listening. This is Three Man Front. Pat Landrum, Conrad. Molly, a little bit under the weather today. Hopefully she'll be back with us tomorrow. Some headlines this hour. We're going to go to Salt Lake City coming up at 1 o'clock. 12:30, we're going to talk to Blake Topmeyer from USA Today Network. But at 1 o'clock, Salt Lake City has pretty much been the center of the college football world over the weekend for all the wrong reasons. But this morning, a lawsuit accusing BYU quarterback Jake Retzlaff of rape has been dismissed. A civil lawsuit accusing the BYU quarterback of rape has been dismissed. According to court records, the parties jointly agreed to dismiss with prejudice, ending the case, which was filed last month. None of the parties were immediately available for comment. So let me ask you, what does that really mean when it says dismissed with prejudice?
It means this case is permanently dismissed. That means that the plaintiff in this case, meaning the young woman, cannot refile the same thing against the defendant in the future.
So no double jeopardy.
No, it's fine. It's final judgment. This is it.
Retzlaff now plans to transfer from BYU as he faces a possible 7-game suspension for violating the school's honor code by admitting to premarital sex during the legal proceedings. He has begun informing staff and teammates of his intention to leave, sources have told ESPN.
So we're just speculating here. We don't know that this happened. We'll talk to Jake Hatch. But just on the outside looking in, it seems like you're in the transfer portal. You know that you're not going to have many takers, knowing that you might not have any anyways, but knowing if there is still pending legal action that's out there, I'm just saying you could go, you have your attorney go to her attorney and say, we're going to give you this amount of money to make this go away. In court anyways.
The BYU quarterback, he's been working out with the squad and participating in summer workouts and practices. The team is on a break until July the 7th. The woman had alleged that the BYU quarterback had raped, strangled, and bit her in November of 2023. In a response to the lawsuit filed Friday, a lawyer representing Retzlaff denied these allegations, but said Retzlaff had consensual sex with the woman. When
this allegedly happened back in 2003, he says it was consensual. She said it was not. She went and had the rape kit done.
And pictures taken. But chose, or for whatever reason, nothing was filed back then, right? Is that correct? Or was this just a civil suit that was filed a month ago, and she did pursue criminal charges back?
There were, from what I read, there were no criminal charges that were ever.
That is correct.
Ever brought up.
Never.
Interesting.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
And
look, and I'm not saying interesting like, there's a variety of reasons why victims do not press charges in certain situations. So I'm not at all saying she is not a victim.
So after the supposed event, a few days later, the woman visited a hospital where a rape kit was performed and pictures of her injuries were taken. The lawsuit says that she was connected with Provo, Utah police, but did not initially share Retzlaff's name to the police. No criminal charges have been filed against the BYU quarterback. And now here we are with both parties filing motions, and apparently it has been granted by the court. But he is now facing a code of conduct by him admitting in court, or at least in court documents, that he had consensual sex, which is against the code of conduct of a student at the Brigham Young University.
Conrad, it's unfair to ask you. Do you think someone picks him up in the portal?
No, I don't. I think it's obviously I mean, very serious allegations, and if there's any truth to them whatsoever, then he doesn't deserve any right to ever get another opportunity. But I think when you factor in the situation that he's in on top of, I feel like a lot of schools are probably set with, hey, these are the guys we're rolling with. I don't know if you would see someone roll the dice on.
Because it is a he said,
like
it is a he said, she said at this point.
It is. And that's why, again, I said earlier, if you are the BYU quarterback, I think ultimately you want to pursue an outcome where the female has to come out and rescind all of the things that she said against you and all the allegations, because otherwise it does appear as, oh, you're paying somebody to settle and shut their mouth, and we're not going to entertain somebody with that kind of a background.
So Retzlaff threw for almost 3,000 yards, right under 3,000 last year, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, rushed for 400-plus yards with 6 touchdowns on the ground. I definitely think some folks will have a conversation with him.
They won 11 games.
If you were in, but nowadays it's more likely that people are actually going, or some of these programs will consider it.
I'll give you that.
Than in the past.
I'll give you that. And not to put words in your mouth, but I assume what you were going to ask me is if I was a coach, would I take a player like that out of the portal?
Yeah, but, I was going to say if you were a fan, I was going to say if it was Alabama and they needed a quarterback, but
would you support that?
That's not fair.
No, but I mean, no, I would not.
Yeah.
I think this is the arena you know.
I thought you were going to ask him if he ever broke the Alabama Student Code of Conduct.
I think that one's a little harder to break than the one at Brigham Young, for being honest.
On plagiarism?
Yeah, I think that's about it. I'm just kidding. They have higher standards.
Let's be real. For most of us that went to a college or university, we would have been guilty of most of those tenets in the Code of Conduct.
Yes.
I said most. I won't tell you which ones, but yeah.
So this weekend down in Thibodaux, Louisiana, the Manning Passing Academy, it concluded.
Was Johnny Manziel working as a counselor?
He was not.
Dang it.
Manning family did not invite him this year. Ty Simpson, Alabama quarterback, had an opportunity to meet with the media, and he gives us an explanation about what has been going on this offseason and how difficult it has been for the Alabama assumed quarterback.
I just feel like we're a very close group. Everybody hangs out with everybody when we don't have football going on, and I feel like we're hungry. We have a chip on our shoulder. The Alabama standard wasn't what it did last year. Losing 3 or 4 games, and we understand that. And so this off season's been very, very hard. One of the hardest ones out of my 4 years there at Bama, and we understand that hey, we need to bring this physicality back in the Alabama way, and so that's what we're trying to do, and that's what our plan is in this upcoming season.
So this next statement really got people on social media fired up. A lot of Alabama fans, just if you've really never heard Ty Simpson talk before, this next clip that you're going to hear is going to fire up a lot of Alabama fans.
I'm not going to sit here and say it wasn't hard, because there were some days where I felt like God wasn't on my side, and I didn't really understand His plan. But I prayed about it, and at the end of the day, there wasn't anywhere else where I wanted to play. I felt that God had put me in Tuscaloosa for a reason. I always felt like that I could accomplish everything that I could. Still to this day, with winning a national championship and being a first-round pick there at the University of Alabama, and I couldn't leave my friends, my teammates. You know what I mean? Some of my best friends who are going to be in my wedding one day are my teammates there at the University of Alabama, and seeing them on a different sideline, it didn't feel right to me. And so with Coach Saban's guidance and the guys who are on the team and go to school there, there was nowhere else where I would rather be than the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa.
A lot to like about what he said. Joy still comes in the morning. Good for him. And for Ty Simpson, because he is a rarity these days in college athletics. I hope it works out for him.
It's so easy to root for him.
Yeah.
And you compare and contrast that of an interview that Thomas Castellanos gave to On3 Sports, in which he spewed off about how they're going to beat Alabama, and Alabama's nothing now because Nick Saban's not on the sideline.
Well, took shots about his former teammates.
Yeah. That's one quarterback. Let's hear to the presumed starting quarterback at the University of Alabama. What does he think about playing Florida State University?
It's a big game. One, it's the first game of the season. It gets a really good team with Florida State, with Gus Malzahn and Coach Norvell and their good defense. It's going to be a great atmosphere, and just you got to enable to go 2-0. You got to go 1-0 first. You know what I mean? So we're going to go down there and do our job and make sure we come out with a win.
That's what it sounds like when you expect to win a football game.
No bulletin board material right there. You show respect to your opponent.
Yep, and then you go and
you know what would have been really
take
funny?
It out on them on the field.
If Ty would have said, you know what, Bobby Bowden's not on the sideline anymore. Jimbo Fisher's not on the sideline anymore.
I got more talent in my pinky than Castellanos has in his whole body.
Is Derek Brooks playing defense?
Charlie Ward's not playing quarterback.
Last time I checked, Dion's not lining up at corner.
Jameis got more eligibility? Oh, no, he didn't, did he? Okay, no, we're going to be fine.
Sorry, FSU, Dave. We couldn't resist that one. That was too easy. All right, speaking of the Manning Passing Academy, Arch Manning. Yeah, only the 6th time that the media has been able to hear Arch Manning speak. I have been very impressed.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not being a smartass here. I'm being – every time I hear this young man speak, he is extremely well-spoken.
Well, that's the angle. The less he speaks, the more impressed we're going to be with what he says.
Well,
but I'm like you. All kidding aside, I agree.
This is Arch Manning. Take a listen to this line of questioning about his popularity in Austin, being a young person there in a hot, happening town like Austin.
How careful are you to just not go out and I don't know, do shots at a bar and be because everybody could spin it some way.
I'm 21, so I can do shots at a bar.
Right. But so it would have been worse a year ago.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, we're busy half the time, so a lot of the time I'm just kicking it with my friends at home and focused on ball right now. That's what I love to do. All that other stuff is fun, but it's not my ideal time.
Sounds a lot like Eli there, his uncle.
Well, let's just say that Eli had a very typical
festive
student experience in Oxford, Mississippi.
Yep. I've heard that. I talked to somebody who just got back from Austin on a work trip, and they said they have the self-driving Ubers now. Said it freaked him out.
I saw the
video.
video.
See, I don't want that. I want a person.
Did you see the other day where the Tesla came off of the assembly line there in Austin and drove by itself
to downtown,
out the door, 45 minutes to a condo there in Austin to deliver to the person that bought it?
I don't like that.
45-minute drive.
No,
that's too much.
I'm with you. There's just, not that it's always right, but there are circumstances where I want to be able to react as a human being and have a little bit of control.
Again, sidebar, but it's just how much evidence do you really have to know that this is going to work 100? Because even if, it works 99% of the time, I don't want an auto-driving car that works 99%
But I still
of
worry
the time.
about other drivers. We have it in...
Yes.
Don't even get me started, but I'm going to get started here. Blinking red light. People still...
Good point. Yep.
Some people have no idea what to do. They just freeze up. What if that happens if
Go watch the video. It's so fascinating. It's about 3.5 minutes long of this Tesla.
Wow, drove 45 minutes in 3.5 minutes? That's really incredible. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
It's that Alabama education right there. That quick math. So a very interesting, friendship has come together between Garrett Nussmeier and Arch Manning. Listen to this little tidbit about them going out to a local Walmart the other night.
I love Garrett. He's the man. You know, he's a coach's kid, so he knows ball. We went to Walmart last night and got food, so he's the man. I'm glad I got built a good relationship with him.
Yeah, we went to Walmart last night. Yeah, it was a good time. It was pretty funny. You know, we're walking through Louisiana, and somebody came up and asked Arch for a picture. And I'm like, hey, guys, like, remember me? Like, nah, it's pretty funny.
So there you go, the LSU starting quarterback. With a lot of people saying, hey, he's going to be one of the front runners for the Heisman Trophy. He's in his state, and Arch Manning is taking pictures and selfies in Walmart in Louisiana, but nothing for Garrett Nelson.
What do you think they were grabbing at Walmart?
Well, see, that's what I was wondering. Like, what do you? I mean, I guess at that point, you know, you can still probably get away with eating about whatever you want. I don't know, maybe some like bagel bites or pizza rolls or something.
Oh, you think they're going frozen foods?
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming it was like late night. Hey, let's go get some snacks or something. I don't know.
So the patriarch.
I'm sorry, it was eggs and salmon. I'm sure that's all they ate, and rice.
And
They're
Walmart's
so
where I'm
healthy.
going to get my salmon.
Yeah.
Okay, some of you do. I'm sorry.
Archie Manning, the patriarch of the Manning family, had this to say about Arch's development.
Just develop. You know, that's what's happened when you go to college, and he really is kind of a gym rat. So he likes the workouts. He's gotten bigger, stronger, maybe faster. I'm not sure. And then, but he's still got to play, and he's gotten to play some, which is a plus for him. But you got to, you know, get out there as a full-time starter, and you get good experience. You just get good experience. You learn things. You just learn things in a game that you can't learn in practice. So we're excited for Arch. He's worked hard, and we hope he can stay healthy. You know, I'm not a coach. I never was. I never tried to be a coach with Peyton or Eli or Cooper. And the same way with Arch. We have a really good grandfather-grandson relationship. And I think it's because I don't try to coach him. I just try to be his grandfather. And he kind of takes that advice. I think Arch is a good guy. He's a good teammate, and that's important.
So covering this conference, and when Peyton was obviously at Tennessee and Eli was at Ole Miss, that's the way Archie was with them. Like he did not get involved. I can't tell you how many times we would have him on the Feinbaum show, Archie, talking about Peyton or talking about Eli, and it was the same thing. So talking about his grandson, just a very good relationship between the grandfather and the grandson. Maybe talking a little ball on occasion, but just being the grandfather as opposed to being a coach.
Arch just seems like from his personality, he's an easy guy to pull for, even if you don't like Texas. I think maybe Quinn Ewers, the way he came in, not that Quinn Ewers was bad, but
Well, he was also
Arch is a little bit more endearing.
Well, I think a lot of people remember Quinn Ewers as, oh, that's the kid that got $1 million to come out of high school,
Right.
and he kind of started the NIL stuff.
Yep. We will talk to Blake Topmeyer coming up at the bottom of the hour. Top of next hour, we'll go to Salt Lake City and find out the very latest on this just unbelievable story about the quarterback at BYU and what the very latest is with him. This is Reaction Monday, 1-800-239-WJOX. It is 12:22 here on Jocks. Pat Landrum Conrad with you until 2 o'clock. Oh, I thought there was another recruit.
No.
Like, what was going on? Is that old tree leaning a little bit too close to your house? Don't wait for that next storm to make that decision for you. If you need to get rid of that tree, call Golston Tree Service today, 205-337-4443. Your trusted local experts in fast, affordable, and professional tree removal, trimming, and cleanup. Licensed, insured, they're ready to handle any job, big or small. Call Golston Tree Service today, 205-337-4443. Golston also offers that 24-hour emergency tree service. When it comes to your trees, don't risk it. Call Golston Tree Service at 205-337-4443.
You want some more texts? We got them on the text line.
Sure thing.
205-834-9450. Max chiming in and saying, don't diss Walmart. Salmon. I'll do it in a pinch. I don't eat salmon.
I was about to say, to be fair, I don't particularly enjoy salmon from anywhere.
No.
I just eat it because it's healthy.
I mean, it could come straight off the boat. I'm not going to be fired up about it. So, Max, not trying to diss where you get your salmon in a pinch. This is pretty good. From Michael. He said Garrett Nussmeier did take a picture with Arch Manning, but it got picked off.
That was good.
Going back to self-driving cars, as someone who is a bit leery of using cruise control, I'm really hesitant to get in a self-driving car. Yeah, it seems like that's not for you.
No.
There's certain things where I think it would make it easier. Let's just say,
Be a lot easier to eat in the car.
Yep. All of a sudden, bladder hits you, you got a tinkle.
Yeah, but then if you miss and it gets on the pedals, that wouldn't be fun.
Well, you're not. Are you sitting in the back seat of this thing?
No. That'd be weird. It'd be like getting, well, I don't know. It's like you're getting chauffeured around by a ghost, I guess.
Pat, would you do it? If we go to Atlanta and they have these things, are we going to do it?
I think I would do it.
For $10,000,
I would
would
do
you
it.
ride
I would
around
do
in
it
a
with you
stranger's
guys.
Tesla for 30 seconds?
I would do it with you guys. I don't know why. I feel like I'd be safer. Or just knowing that I wouldn't be the only one.
You don't want to go out alone, yeah.
Right.
No, I get it.
When we get T-boned.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop at the intersection.
I did watch part
And
of
I
that
wanna be in the
video,
middle.
though. I mean, it's...
Oh, Jay, I'd sent you the link.
Yeah, I just watched part of it in the... I mean, it's cool. It's cool.
It's just
It's
weird
a
how
little sketchy, but it's cool.
how the camera crew got next to the car. And it's just weird. You look over there and there's nobody in the car.
Nothing.
And you're just like, oh. And how if you're like getting off the exit ramp, like heading to this dude's house.
Right.
And like you're the car that's in front of the Tesla. And like you're looking in your rearview mirror and you don't see anybody.
Oh, yeah, you're like...
And you're
oh,
like going,
Mm-hmm.
some kid just driving
am
this
I-
car.
well, am I about to get rear-ended here?
Or that, yeah.
And if Tesla rear ends you, you get out to exchange information. Does Tesla just go around you and keep driving?
Yeah, how does that work? I will say I would be a lot more comfortable if it was one of the cyber trucks, because then at least if you get in a wreck, I mean, thing's a tank.
My buddy who went out there, he said he thought it was the Google whatever.
Oh, the Google
Cars that
Map
ride
cars?
around? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he kept seeing them, and he was like, there's no way that Google has that many cars out here. And then he found out a guy that he worked with said that he got one. And he said it was fine.
I've
But
been in
weird.
Tesla before. They're nice cars, just different.
Jake Coker 2.0 says one of our listeners, inject that into my veins, baby. RTR, the return of joyless murder ball. Is that what you like to hear, Conrad?
That's all you need. That is what I had that conversation many times this weekend with friends of you need Ty Simpson to be Jake Coker and you're good. Jake Coker was pretty good quarterback.
Back to the BYU honor code. Somebody asked, what kind of percentage do you give the BYU student body that live by that code of conduct, aside from this case?
Well, I don't know. We've seen the TikToks before of their, people go around and ask, BYU students questions like, would you rather, break the code of conduct or do this very minor, they take it very seriously is what I'm trying to say. I think you'd be surprised at the number of BYU students that actually adhere to those guidelines.
And student section at Liberty, I was there right in front of them in a football game. Not one cuss word. Some very creative heckles, but not one cuss word.
You know, FSU Dave, he texted in earlier and he was asking me about Jim McMahon, one of the famous bad boys of the NFL. He went to BYU. Now, he was not Mormon, but he still had to obviously adhere to the student code of conduct.
Well, Steve Sarkisian wasn't Mormon. He's Catholic. I'm guessing that was in place back then.
Doesn't Notre Dame have a similar rule?
I'm sure they do.
As far as I understand at Notre Dame, you're not allowed to do that either. If
that?
Premarital sex
is
is a punishable offense.
When we come back on three-man
put it in a cup.
Jeepers. Blake Topmeyer is going to join us from the USA Today College Football Network. We'll get his thoughts on this upcoming 2025 season. We're 2 weeks away from the SEC Football Media Days in Atlanta. This is Three-Man Front on Jocks. .32 here on Jocks. This is Three-Man Front. Pat Landrum Conrad with you until 2 o'clock. Take you up to the Paul Feinbaum Show right here on Jocks. Joining us now on the Higginbotham Hotline, talk a little general college football and the upcoming SEC Football Media Days in 2 weeks. Blake Topmeyer, the senior national college football columnist for USA Today Network, joins us here on Three Man Front. Blake, I hope the summer's gone well. We're 2 weeks away from really kind of getting things kicked off for the season.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Good talking to you guys, and you're right. It's starting to feel close. Even though we got two months left this time of year, you start to in my columns I start to leave the word off season behind, and you start transitioning to the word preseason. I think we're out of the off season now, in so much as one exists anymore, and we're definitely in preseason mode now.
Well, I have to ask you this, Blake, because so many of us, whether we took any pre-law classes in college or not, with everything that has happened in college sports, from NIL, transfer portal, house settlement, it seemed like that we had to be almost going to night classes to get a law degree based on the way that the college football world has gone. But now it seems like it's settled down a little bit, and we finally can start concentrating maybe on the actual ball that's going to be played on the field.
Yeah, no question. And I think that's still where most fans' attention is, right? I mean, when I would interact with fans about the house case, all they wanted to know is this going to help my team or hurt my team? Sum it up for me in 50 words or less. Of course, that's really hard to do, right?
Right.
And I think it's pretty debatable as to whether it's going to help you, hurt you, or be about the same for everybody, especially all these teams that are going to fully fund the house settlement, which most powerful programs are. So, yeah, but I mean, I think with all that off-field stuff, really, for college football fans, they want to know how good their team's going to be, what the roster looks like this year, and let's go out and play some games.
Blake, when you look at the SEC, we'll start here in this state, and the expectations for the Alabama Crimson Tide and Kalen DeBoer in season number 2. What, just on the periphery, do you like about this team entering the 2025 season?
Well, I think they improved at a couple key positions. I think they upgraded at wide receiver. I mean, yes, they're Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, they're back, another year older, all that. But they went out and got a good transfer as well, and Isaiah Horton, who is a pretty good wide receiver at Miami. Now he steps in there. I think overall the wide receiver depth chart is better. I also think the defensive backfield is better. Strange as it is to say, Nick Saban did not leave the cupboard fully stocked in the secondary. Now, that wasn't all Nick Saban's fault, and part of it's just the reality. You have a legendary coach retire, you're going to lose some guys on the back end of that, and Caleb Downs transferred, and that was a punishing blow for Alabama. But the long and short of it was, I didn't think that secondary was in very good shape last year. Now, a year later, that position's like a 180. That could be the most improved position group on the team, I think, this secondary. So those are a couple things I like. On the flip side of that, we all know the quarterback situation is going to kind of make or break this team to a certain extent, right? With Ty Simpson, veteran guy, he's first in line for the job, I think. Just need to see him go out and do it. Is he as dynamic as Jalen Milroe? He's not. But Milroe had the turnover issues, and so can Simpson be more consistent and keep the team out of bad situations? I think that's a question. That's a possibility. And the other thing with Alabama, even though I mentioned I like their wide receivers better than I did a year ago, when you take the skill positions in general, wide receivers, running backs, I still don't see the abundance of top shelf talent that we saw at the peak of the Saban days. I mean, think about Ohio State's wide receivers last year, right? I mean, right. They're the best wide receiver group in the country. They won the national championship. I think they're better at wide receiver. Maybe they're a little bit better at running back, but to me, this is not pinnacle Alabama at the skill positions.
Talking to Blake Topmeyer from USA Today Network, talking a little college football. We're just 2 weeks away from SEC football media days. Another team in this state of Alabama that we talk about on a daily basis is the Auburn Tigers. They have stacked back-to-back top 10 recruiting seasons, but it has not translated yet to the field victories that Auburn expects. What is your anticipation for this Auburn team this season, and could Hugh Freeze be on the proverbial hot seat if they don't get to at least 8 wins?
Yeah, a huge season for Hugh Freeze. When you're compiling the list, I think of coaches facing the most pressure, particularly when you're adding hot seat in the equation. I mean, all these guys face pressure, right? But in terms of like guys that could find themselves on the hot seat, if there's not improvement, Hugh Freeze is in that position, right? He needs a good year this year, and it's kind of like beating a dead horse here. But the situation with Alabama and Auburn does share some similarities, because the biggest question I have at both these teams is quarterback. Hugh Freeze a decade ago kind of had the magic touch at quarterback. He was ahead of the game with the RPOs. I think he was ahead of the game in recognizing that wide receiver was a position that he could put a lot of value in at a time when maybe some other SEC coaches weren't valuing wide receiver as much as some other positions. And that worked wonderfully for Hugh at Ole Miss, but that's been a decade ago now, right? And he hasn't had that magic touch with quarterbacks the last few seasons, and Auburn in general has been spinning its tires at that position. And so, now they bring in Jackson Arnold, and the question is, for me with Arnold, like, how much of Oklahoma's problems last year were because of Jackson Arnold, and how much of it was because of everybody else? And I think the easy answer, but I think the truthful answer is both. Jackson Arnold did not get much help from his offensive line last year. Seemed like all of his wide receivers were hurt. I mean, Oklahoma probably set records with the number of their wide receiver injuries last year. So he didn't get a lot of help. And also, I thought there were chunks of the season where he just wasn't very good either. So now with what should be a better offensive line, with what should be better receivers than what he had available at Oklahoma, how much does that help him? And can he play up to that 5-star recruiting ranking that we really haven't seen from him much throughout his career? There's been very, very few times where I thought he's looked like a 5-star talent, but he's going to have a much better supporting cast than what he had last year at Oklahoma, I believe.
Blake, one program that doesn't have to worry about their quarterback, but you know what? They've had quarterbacks for the last few years, but still have failed to reach the college football playoff. I'm talking about the LSU Tigers. How much pressure is there on Brian Kelly and the Tigers to get to the college football playoff this season?
Yeah, I think pressure significant. In terms of hot seat pressure, I don't know. I mean, he's still pretty protected by a substantial buyout. I know sometimes we kind of assume the buyout means nothing in college football, but it does give you pause when it's as big as what Brian Kelly's would be after this season. And he's also won 29 games through 3 years. That can't be the long-term result for LSU and Brian Kelly. That's not why they brought him in, was to average 10 wins in a season. But when you compare him with some other guys that are been in the league for about as long, he's been hitting at a higher level, but it's not the level that, to your point, the level that LSU expects. And I think they have, if they don't make the playoff this year, there's going to be no excuses. I'll say that, because you have the quarterback, the most proven quarterback in the SEC, and I had my SEC quarterback rankings come out today. I had Garrett Nussmeier number 2 on my list. I think, like I said, he is the most proven. Where you put him on your pecking order probably depends on what you think of the ceiling of some other guys. But point being, Garrett Nussmeier has to be in the top 4 or 5 of anybody's list of SEC quarterbacks. I have him at number 2 on my list. They've got a great group of wide receivers around him. Then you flip over to the other side of the ball. LSU did as well in the portal this offseason as anybody. They got their donor game figured out. I don't know why it took them this long to get their donor game figured out in the NIL era. There's probably a little bit of blame to go around in a few places there, but they got their donor game figured out this offseason. You can see that reflected in their transfer haul. A lot of guys that are, I think, should help elevate the personnel of LSU's defense. So LSU's defense has been a mess for a few years, and when I watched them last year, and this is not an excuse for Brian Kelly. He's got to get it fixed. He's the head man. But when I watched them last year, I thought, that is not LSU caliber personnel out there on defense. There are a few exceptions, but starting 11, top to bottom, that was not the caliber of personnel they needed. I think they correctly recognized that. I think it took them too long to recognize that, but they did recognize it. They got the donor game going. They didn't just bring in warm bodies in the portal. They brought in frontline starters. I mean, guys like Patrick Payton, defensive lineman from Florida State, Jack Pyburn, defensive lineman from Florida. That's just one example of a position where you could have half your starters coming out of the portal. And again, they're not just warm bodies, which is the type of guys that LSU had been adding the past few years, other than Jaden Daniels. They hadn't been hitting at a high level out of the portal. Not only do they get warm bodies this time, I think they got some guys with some talent that can help them.
Blake, I'm curious, if we assume as a group that Texas, Georgia, Bama, and LSU, let's say that that's the upper tier of the Southeastern Conference, that will be in the major conversation for a college football playoff berth. What is that next group of schools, in your opinion, that we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about during the regular season that could be on the cusp of that next four in regards to maybe making the CFP?
Yeah, I think it's I think that's what's so interesting about the SEC is, and I think you're right to identify the top four, and then there's like probably 3 or 4 teams at the bottom that we would think it would take some sort of act of a higher power for those teams to make the playoff. The ones I'm thinking of at the bottom, in no particular order, would be Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. So if you got your 4 at the top, and then you got the 4 that I just mentioned at the bottom, that leaves 8 teams in the middle that I think any one of those 8 could make a run at the playoff, or pretty much any one of those 8 could finish about 7-5 or worse. And so I guess who's at the top of the pack talent-wise? I think Oklahoma did a ton to revamp their program, their roster this offseason. I mean, bringing in John Mateer at quarterback, that's one of the most exciting transfer additions, not just in the SEC, but in the country. They also brought in Mateer's coordinator from Washington State, so he doesn't have to learn a new offense. He brought his coordinator with him. And I think just year over year, Oklahoma is maybe positioned to make as big an upgrade as anybody in the SEC. The problem is they have either the number 1 or number 2 toughest schedule in the country, really any way you slice it. It's either Oklahoma or Florida for me that can tout the toughest schedule. So they could be a lot better personnel-wise and still come up short of the playoff. But they would be, near the top of that tier for me, as well as Ole Miss. I think there's been an overcorrection in sort of the off-season hype for Ole Miss. Like last year at this time, I mean, we were about ready to not only pencil them in the playoff, but write them in a magic marker. And it's like we were dusting off the crown to put on Lane's head to name them national champions in June. Well, we all know what happened. They blew it. They came up with victory short of the playoff. And now a year later, I just feel like I said, it's almost been an overcorrection, because last year they were the number 1 team in the hype machine, not in the rankings, but in terms of just off the chart hype, it was them. Now a year later, it's crickets from the hype machine about Ole Miss, and yet nobody does the annual transfer dance better than Lane. He brought in a lot of good guys out of the portal again. The sample size with Austin Simmons is very, very small, and yet what we saw out of that small sample size was pretty darn good. Yeah. And especially in that relief appearance while Jackson Dart was briefly out, and Simmons came in and led a touchdown drive in that win over Georgia. So I think Austin Simmons could be one of the breakout players in the SEC this year. If he is, I think Ole Miss is a playoff contender, because they have one of the most favorable schedule draws in the SEC. I say Oklahoma has maybe the toughest. Ole Miss has one of the most favorable. And then one more, I think, in that group that I'm interested by, South Carolina. They got hot for a stretch at the end of last season, beat Clemson, but they lost, they're probably their 3 toughest SEC games, and that's what kept them out of the playoff. They lost to LSU, lost to Alabama, lost to Ole Miss. But Lenore Sellers, he's one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in this conference as well. And so, you got a quarterback, you got a chance. And so I would kind of put them in that mix as well. So Ole Miss, Oklahoma, South Carolina kind of heads up that next tier of potential playoff contenders for me. But so much of this comes down to the schedule you draw.
That is Blake Topmeyer. You can follow his work there at the USA Today Network, national college football writer for USA Today. Blake, always appreciate your time. Look forward to catching up with you in a couple weeks, as we'll all be in Atlanta, Georgia. Always appreciate it, Blake. Have a good afternoon. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, good talking to you guys.
Thanks. That is Blake Topmeyer joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
4th of July coming up this Friday. A lot of you off of work. Hopefully you are. But good news, our friends at Dobbs Ford, they're going to be working hard for you there on Parkway East. They're going to be serving up hamburgers, hot dogs that Joey Goshen, his wife Rachel, the managing partners of Dobbs Ford, are going to be hot at it, whether it's preparing a hot dog and hamburger for you and your family or preparing some great deals that you're going to find on the F-150s, the Mustangs, the Broncos and Broncos Sports. How about an Explorer or an Expedition? You can get them there at Dobbs Ford. The people set Dobbs Ford apart from some of the other Ford dealerships. You're going to get a lot of the same inventory, but they'll beat any competitor's price, and they have Alabama's largest showroom selection. Dobbs Ford. And again, this Friday, go in. You don't have to buy anything. You can enjoy a hamburger, a hot dog, and just some good fellowship with some fine people. DobbsFordBirmingham.com. That's the website. Always tell them that Landrum from Jocks sent you.
Well, it was a big weekend in the state of Louisiana. Had the Manning Passing Camp, and you also had the Louisiana State Hall of Fame. Not LSU Hall of Fame, the Louisiana State Hall of Fame. A very famous person was inducted in that Hall of Fame. We'll tell you who it was and what he said next on 3 Man Front. All right, so over the weekend, the State of Louisiana Hall of Fame had a very famous person inducted. Nick Saban. Kind of shocked that it took them this long. I guess they waited for Alabama to get rid of the Alabama taste out of their mouth of Nick Saban.
Thought you were going to say James Carville.
I'm sure he's already in there.
He probably is.
Take a listen to what Nick Saban had to say. This is such a great story of when he took the LSU job.
And I was a pretty underwhelming hire here, if you remember, in the year 2000. Everybody at the university, including the fans, sort of bought in and did the things that we need to do to have a successful program. Because you might not remember, but when I took over, we were 3-8. And I always tell the story that, we'd just gone 10-2 at Michigan State, and I was disappointed in our administration there because of their lack of commitment to what we wanted to accomplish and what we wanted to do. So I was interested in the LSU job. So Mark Emmert, Richard Gill, Charlie Weems, Stanley Jacobs comes and meets me in Memphis secretly to interview for this job. And they offered me the job, but I said, I can't take the job. I've never been to LSU before. I don't know what it's like. So, and I can't go for an interview because if they find out publicly at Michigan State that I'm thinking of going someplace else, they'll absolutely crucify me. So I send Miss Terry, this is the God truth, to interview. And Delane Emmerich, Mark's wife, showed her around for 2 days. They saw billboards of who LSU wanted to hire. My name wasn't on there. But anyway, she spent 2 days, so I called and I said, well, what'd you think? And she said, man, this place needs a lot of work. She said, the stadium's in bad shape. They don't have no academic facilities. They have no academic support center. The players are not doing well academically. She said, you have to get in the bus and ride to practice every day from the campus because the facilities are separated. The coach's offices are in a bank building and very unimpressive. I don't know how you would recruit there. But she said, I went in the weight room today, and they got some damn good-looking players. So that's how I took the job. But then when I got there and I saw what she saw without seeing any players, before I went into press conference, I went in a corner and talked on the phone and I said, Terry, this is not really what I thought it might be after your interview. And she said, put your big boy pants on and get your ass in the press conference and go to work. So that's what we did.
That's how you got down here.
How about that?
Refresh my memory. Was Jimbo Fisher? Was he
He's one of the assistant coaches.
Yeah. Who was a candidate? Who did they really want to hire?
It is 1 o'clock. Welcome back into Three Man Front. Always appreciate our guests taking time out of their schedule to join us here on Three Man Front. Clint Richardson, if you missed that fascinating conversation with Clint, he runs the Auburn Uniform Database website, auburnuniforms.com. The Nike contract kicks in tomorrow for Auburn Athletics. 20 years of Under Armour goes by the wayside tonight at midnight. Blake Topmeyer from the USA Today Network, college football writer, joined us just a couple minutes ago. We're going to go out to Salt Lake City, Utah, talk to Jake Hatch from KSL Radio, also host of the Locked on the BYU Cougars podcast. We'll get the very latest on this disturbing story that came up over the weekend with their quarterback, in which he was accused of sexual assault. And so now it seems that the attorneys for both the plaintiff and the defendant have decided that they are going to get the charges dropped, and it's being reported now that it's being dropped with prejudice. So
if you want to get charged physically, and I'm talking about electrical muscle stimulation fitness, look no further than Mandu in downtown Homewood. Mandu, they make it really easy for you. It's going to fit your schedule because it only takes 15 minutes. That's right. When you get into Mandu, they put you in a suit. They hook you up to a machine that sends electric pulses to various parts of your body. If you're trying to spot train, maybe you're just trying to tone up your legs, maybe your glutes for the summertime, you can do it there at Mandu. They got tailor-made programs, whatever you're trying to achieve, and it's good for men. It's good for women and people of all ages. Check it out, Mandu in downtown Homewood. Your first visit is free, and it's only 15 minutes because of that technology that's been FDA approved. It's equivalent to 6 hours in a gym. You're going to get results. I've gotten results, and everyone who has tried Mandu that I've talked to, they've gotten results as well. Mandu, right now through July 4th, that's this Friday. If you join now, you're going to get 10% off your first month's subscription. Mandu, MANDUU.com. Tell Paul and the gang that Landrum from Jocks sent you.
Joining us now on the Higginbotham Hotline, you've heard him numerous times on this program. Anytime that we need a great report from out west, west of the Rocky Mountains, we go to Salt Lake City and talk to Jake Hatch from KSL Radio. They're in Salt Lake City, also the host of the KSL Sports Zone and, of course, the Locked on Cougars podcast. And that's going to be the major topic of discussion with Jake. Now, Jake, I hope you're doing well. And when this story broke on Friday about the BYU quarterback, was this news to you guys, or was this something that you heard that was percolating and in the pipeline for the weeks leading up to what happened on Friday?
So on Friday, with the response that Jake's legal team filed, was we've been expecting it. There's no timeline really when we were going to see that come out, but yeah, we were expecting that to come at some point. Now, to file it as like almost a news dump type thing on a late Friday night, that's one thing in and of itself. But yeah, in it obviously had his response to the allegations levied against him in that civil lawsuit. So we've been expecting it, but yeah, it did change the whole tenor of the conversation. And then I'm sure you guys are going to ask about all the events that happened this morning with the lawsuit finally being dismissed.
Yeah, but first I want to go back. If you could kind of maybe from what you know, this was alleged to have happened back in 2023. I realized that the young lady in this case reportedly went and had the rape kit done there at a local medical facility. Why were initial charges never filed, never brought to light? Do you have anything that you could help out on that?
So according to the Provo Police Department, which investigated this, they reached out to this alleged victim multiple times and got no response from this alleged victim. They also said that they, based on their initial investigation, and I believe them when they say they did a thorough examination of the overall investigation and all the details in it, they said that they had, quote, no actionable leads that came out of it. That's the statement that the Provo Police Department put out about that. So if the plaintiff or the alleged victim, I should say, in this circumstance, refused to talk to them, I think that's ultimately where the thing ended in terms of the criminal investigation, because simply put, Provo Police Department couldn't investigate any further than what they had in the initial report.
So on Friday, I guess this is more of a logistics thing. So on Friday, was that a date in which the defense had to give a response? And so that's why now it is known that Retzlaff had a consensual relationship that so many people are now talking about now that these suits have been dropped. Is that why this all came out on Friday? Because the court had deemed that was the deadline, so to speak, for the defense to, answer to the charges?
Yeah, I don't know the exact time, deadline in terms of filing that report, but it was coming up on it. So, yes, it was essentially they had to get this in and get it done. But, yes, that absolutely was part of it, why it was coming out on Friday, just to get it on the public record, because you have to respond in a certain period of time, no doubt.
Jake, take us through some of the news that came out this morning, and we reported it here on the show that I guess the lawsuit had been dismissed with prejudice. What can you tell us about that? The timing seems very interesting.
Yeah, so over the weekend, obviously, I was doing my due diligence, talking to different people. The expectation was that there was going to be resolution on this case coming this week, is what I was told. Obviously, that happened this morning. So, yes, both sides of this lawsuit, both the alleged victim as well as Jake Retzloff's legal team, both sets of attorneys filed a motion to dismiss this, as you guys already mentioned, with prejudice. What with prejudice means is that it cannot be refiled, resurrected, or re-litigated at any point, because it's done and dead at this point. Now, they also in the statement said that both sides will retain their respective attorney's fees and costs associated with it. So it is a move towards, as we have been hearing, and I am happy to pass along, if you guys haven't heard, that Jake Retzloff is going to be leaving BYU. I guess I'm not happy about it per se, but he's going to be leaving the university, and this resolution of that lawsuit allows him to now step forward, announce he's transferring, and ultimately land with another football program with the hopes of being their quarterback this fall.
All right, Jake. So let's talk about and you cover BYU on a daily basis. And for those of us on this side of the Rocky Mountains, we're familiar with obviously the code of conduct for students at any university. But obviously BYU being a religious affiliated university, they have certain things that they just do not want, whether you're a football player or just a member of the general student body. You have to adhere to certain rules and regulations. By this now being dropped, but by him admitting that he had a consensual sexual relationship with this woman, I believe this now puts him in the crosshairs of a possible suspension if he would have stayed and not gone into the transfer portal.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly it. So as part of the statement that his attorneys put out, he admitted, as you mentioned, to a consensual sexual relationship with this woman. That crosses the line. That's a no-go with BYU's fairly stringent honor code. It is legitimately something you sign when you go to BYU, that you will abide by the rules, and one of those is having no premarital sex with anybody. And so when he ran afoul of that, that's when the talk about a suspension was coming. I had heard anywhere between 3 and 7 games. Most recent intel is it was indeed they were going to impose a 7-game suspension on him in terms of being able to resume his playing career at BYU. And as it turns out, he believes that's untenable for his situation, and he's going to hit the transfer portal and look for a new opportunity elsewhere.
As close to this program in multiple capacities as you are, Jake, I know you can't give me a number or maybe even a percentage, but this news, when it did break for a lot of us, just coming to light this weekend, how many BYU Cougar football fans, how much had this really been talked about, or how many do you think that this was the first time that they had ever heard anything about these allegations?
Now, so the original lawsuit was filed back in May. It was May 24th, if I got my dates correct. That day was the first time that I'm sure almost every Cougar fan under the sun heard about all these allegations. Since that time, though, it has been front page headline news anytime there's been any scintilla of anything about this case, because it's QB1 in Provo, Utah, and any college program, quarterbacks are a big deal, but at BYU especially so because of the pantheon of the great quarterbacks they've had over the decades. And this has really been kind of dominating the cycle, and speaking of BYU sports, for the better part of a month now. So now that this lawsuit has been settled, I feel like now this is kind of the next step as to where Jake Retzloff can ultimately now announce he's officially going to transfer, and then ultimately determine where he's going to be playing next. Those are kind of the next steps here. But today, the lawsuit being resolved or dismissed, I should say, that is a big step forward in this case.
I know it's awkward to pivot to this question based on the serious nature of this conversation we've had with you, Jake, for the last 7 minutes, but we do talk football, X's and O's, and he had almost 3,000 yards passing last year, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 400-plus yards on the ground, 6 touchdowns. What does this do to the BYU quarterback room with him leaving? And what does this do for the BYU, I guess, the prognosis of this football team for 2025?
Well, it leaves a hole. There's just zero doubt. It leaves a hole because he led BYU to an 11-2 record, a number 13 ranking last year. Those are absolute things you can't argue with what he accomplished at BYU, but it does leave a hole. The small, I guess, sliver of hope for BYU is they have three quarterbacks on the roster that they are fairly bullish on, and they'll have a three-way battle, it appears, in training camp coming up in just over a month's time. Two of the quarterbacks in that battle already have starting experience at the FBS level. One is McKay Hillstead, a local high school product who played at Utah State for a year before transferring to BYU, and then the other is Trayson Bourget, who spent 2 years at Western Michigan and started, I believe, 8 games for the Broncos in the MAC before enrolling at BYU. So both of them have starting experience. That helps. Now, they also added another transfer just this past offseason in Bear Bachmeier from Stanford. Bear is a freshman, a 4-star prospect that went through about 2 or 3 weeks of spring ball with Stanford before Troy Taylor got fired and then decided he was going to look elsewhere. So they have 3 guys that have got tools, and they believe that they will be able to find somebody that can answer and fill the hole that Jake Retzloff leaves. But there's just no denying that losing a quarterback of Jake Retzloff's caliber, you don't just go and say, hey, who we got here is going to step in and replace that right away. It may be a by-committee approach, at least early on this season.
Jake, even with the settlement of this particular case and the allegations, everything that's been put forth, just you guessing, what do you think the likelihood is that Retzloff finds another home and another college program willing to take him on?
Very high. I have talked to people as recently as this morning who indicate that Notre Dame is among schools who have interest in him. And the reason why Notre Dame would have interest in this is because if you look at Notre Dame's roster, they have 4 quarterbacks, and they're all fairly highly regarded recruits in terms of their star ratings and the like, but all 4 of them are underclassmen, either freshmen or sophomores. It sure appears like Notre Dame could be looking at this saying, hey, Jake's a fairly accomplished quarterback. He comes in, he's got 1 year to get it right here with us at Notre Dame, and they can kind of be the stopgap to help tide us over till one of these other quarterbacks steps up as an upperclassman beginning in 2026. So, yeah, I've got faith that Jake will land somewhere, and the latest intel suggests that Notre Dame could be in the lead there.
Jake Hatch from KSL Radio in Salt Lake City. Also, you can hear his work there on the Hooked on Cougars podcast covering BYU. Got to ask you just a generic Big 12 question for 2025. The upper tier of the conference, I'm not asking you for a rundown of your top 4 or 5, but in the conversation, who is going to be – last year was Arizona State, kind of coming out of nowhere. Yeah. Do we have somebody else like that this year in the Big 12, or who do you like in that upper tier of the Big 12?
Well, I think ASU is absolutely in the mix. I think the way that they won it last year showed that there was some continuity there, considering you have guys like Sam Levitt coming back. Yeah, you lose Cam Scadaboo, but Jordan Tyson's an elite wide receiver. So I think Arizona State's absolutely in the mix. But if you want, I guess, more of a dark horse in a way, I would keep an eye on Texas Tech. Now, I know that they've made headlines this offseason with how much money they have thrown around in NIL, but if they can get it right, the talent that they have added – they have got every bit the opportunity to kind of emerge from what was kind of middle of the pack last year in the Big 12 and emerge as the Big 12 champ this year. I know that they have not spent that money thinking that they're going to accept a middling program, speaking of the Red Raiders, but I'm really high on Texas Tech, and I guess I'll add one other team into this mix, and that is just the I don't know how to describe them. They're like a perennial, I guess you'd call it. Speaking of Kansas State, I think Chris Kleiman has done an incredible job with Avery Johnson at quarterback. They've got every weapon, it feels like, to make them a force once again. So if you're asking me kind of my top 3, those are the 3 teams I'm keeping an eye on.
That is Jake Hatch. Excellent work. You can follow his work at KSL Radio in Salt Lake City, also on the Locked on Cougars podcast. Jake, always appreciate your time. Finally, we're going to get some football here in about another month or so, and we can do away with all this stuff that's going on off the field and legal ramifications with the House settlement. But always appreciate it, and take care. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. That is Jake Hatch, just straight off the radio and joining us here on 3-Man Front. He joined us on the Higginbotham Hotline as your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
We don't want to bury the lead. Some very interesting things that Jake had to tell us. We'll discuss them next on 3-Man Front.
It is 1:18 here on Jocks. This is Three Man Front. Appreciate Jake Hatch giving us the very latest. And my jaw hit the ground when he said that, when you asked him, do you think a school would consider Retzloff now that he's leaving BYU under these circumstances? And he did not hesitate.
No.
He said yes. And he went as far as to say that he would not be shocked if Notre Dame, another religious institution in college football, takes a flyer and brings him on campus.
Now, and that was just coming from Jake based on people he talked to, and we trust him. Notre Dame has not said anything, but if that's the case, one would assume that Notre Dame did their due diligence. Not that he's been criminally charged or will be criminally charged given the settlement that happened this morning with prejudice, but talking with people that know Retzloff, coaches, and it's a really, really tough situation without having, and I guess we do have resolution, but knowing what she was alleging, knowing what this dismissed, what that potentially means, I don't want to pretend that, because we don't know the facts, but it's also a situation that could very much so affect his future and what that potentially means. But if Notre Dame is willing to do it, they're going to be getting a great quarterback.
About 3,000 yards passing last year, and had 6 touchdowns on the ground, 20 in the air, 11-2 record. So, yep, he's got some skills. So we'll see if Notre Dame takes a flyer on him and brings him on campus. The Big Ten has announced the players that will be representing their individual schools there at Big Ten Media Days. Just kind of going over this list. I'm not going to bore you with everybody, but just some names of note. On Tuesday, July 22nd, the first day of Media Days, Luke Altmaier, former Ole Miss quarterback, now the shining star in Brett Bielema's eye there in Champaign-Urbana.
Maybe Pat, he'll come on and he'll pull a Tommy Castellanos.
That'd be fantastic.
Where he disses Lane, disses his former teammates.
Indiana, I'm not going to bore you with who these players are because I have no idea who they are. Same with Maryland. I do recognize a name from Nebraska. Dylan Raiola.
Okay.
Will be in attendance.
That's good.
Caleb Downs for Ohio State.
Sorry, I don't remember that name.
He'll be joined by teammate Jeremiah Smith, the greatest wide receiver in the history of college football.
You better believe it.
And linebacker Sonny Styles. That's the Ohio State contingency. Rutgers, not going to bore you. Sorry, I'm just being honest. Same with Minnesota or Northwestern.
I thought Alabama got a guy from Rutgers. He was going to be there. He was going to be there. Oh, yeah.
Drew Aller's going to be there for Penn State.
Hey.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to win the Natty.
Yep. Did you know that Billy Edwards Jr. is the quarterback for Wisconsin, Conrad?
Yeah, I hope he likes his kneecaps while he still has them.
Okay. He'll be in attendance on Wednesday. On Thursday, Iowa.
Yeah.
Michigan.
Who's Iowa's? Hank Brown.
Somebody named McCaffrey.
Cohen Entringer, Ethan Herquette, and Logan Jones for Iowa.
I bet they're all tight ends.
You've got a DB, a defensive lineman, and an offensive lineman.
Wow, no tight ends.
No tight ends. Let's see here. Michigan State. No one that would our audience know. Purdue, no.
Purdue.
USC, Mekhi Lemon, Elijah Page, Kamari Ramsey.
What about Oregon?
Oregon. They're on the day before. Bryce Botchler, Kenyon Sadiq, will be in attendance.
Okay.
And finally, UCLA. Garrett DiGiorgio. John Vons. Oh, what a great name.
John Vons?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Linebacker. That's a good linebacker name.
It is.
John Vons. And then some quarterback by the name of Nico Iamaleava. He will be at Big Ten Media Days representing the Powder Blue from UCLA.
Yep.
You surprised that Nico's going to make it?
I'm not.
Who do you think, this is a good Ponders question when Molly gets back. Who do you think the most media is going to be around, Dylan Raiola or Nico? Why did you raise your eyebrows at me? Conrad's giving me a dirty look. I'm telling on him. I'm telling my boss.
It's not the kid related to Patrick Mahomes, I'll tell you that much.
No. Oh, it's Nico. Nico.
I'm just sitting here looking at the list, and outside of the Ohio State group, there's not anybody that really excites the old.
Wait, I'm sorry. I missed when you said Michigan. I'm assuming Bryce Underwood is not one of the people they're taking. Okay, that would, as a freshman, probably not a good idea.
Max Bredesen, who is a tight end fullback, linebacker Ernest Hausman, and edge rusher Derek Moore. Those are the three players from Michigan who will be in attendance.
I would own it, though. If I'm paying a guy $18 million, whatever that number is, just bring it.
Get your money out of it?
Yeah. Sure. Same with Nico. UCLA would be beside themselves if he wasn't a representative.
Well, you have to. I was about to say, if you're UCLA, you have to. That's a smart move. They'll get attention.
Tennessee should send somebody who covers their program. Like at Go Vols, just send it and ask all the questions you would have asked Nico at SEC Media Days.
There's only 7 quarterbacks that will be represented. Their individual schools.
It's going to be a run-heavy league this year, Pat. Run heavy.
Or maybe they're just all saying, we're just giving it to Luke Altmaier.
Well, I was about to say
he's the star.
That's what it is, Pat. He's too good.
What if Altmaier comes out and just sets it on fire?
I will be upset. Won't be happy about that.
All the shade we've been throwing. Goes 11-1.
Yeah, I don't particularly like eating crow, so
no.
hopefully we don't have to do that.
I just hope, man. That was just such an awesome moment watching Deshaun Foster's press conference last year.
Oh, Pat. See, you would like something that's uncomfortable.
I love it. I love the train wreck. That's exactly what it was.
I'll watch it, but I don't really enjoy it. Yeah, I know you do. And that's fine. That was so awkward.
6 teams every day. 6 teams every day there at the Big Ten.
When Deshaun Foster, I forgot the explanation. Didn't he say that he didn't know that he was supposed to say a whole lot? Was that it?
You mean when he did the whole
we're LA,
we're UCLA, we're in
LA,
Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think that somebody would.
Or did he just freeze up? There was some kind of conversation I thought that he had. And someone went on the record.
I mean, I think it's probably good practice to have, at least 2 minutes prepared? I mean, minimum. Just have something you can fill. I mean, that's the thing I think it was more so it became apparent that he didn't really know anything about UCLA football because otherwise he would have been able to probably filibuster and save some face.
I would have just said I was on some cold medication and just wasn't my 100% self, and I apologize.
Yeah. I don't sleep well when we're on the road and I'm out of my own home. I took some Ambien prescribed to me by my physician, and I took it too late, and I'm still having lingering effects from Ambien.
Or just be like, do you know where we're based? Los Angeles? I was high as a kite, man. What are you talking about?
That would have been good.
We don't get in trouble for that in Los Angeles.
When
we
come back,
you don't get in trouble for there.
That is a great point.
Yeah. Assembly, rioting, all the above. When we come back on 3-Man Front, we'll do some Pat Ponders. This is Jocks on this Reaction Monday. It is 1:32. We'll do some Pat Ponders in a moment. One of the big stories in college football has been the ongoing Resloff situation at BYU. You just heard Jake Hatch just a few moments ago from KSL Radio in Salt Lake City. He was telling us that he believes that another team will take an opportunity to go after Jake Hatch. And he mentioned Notre Dame. Said that would be, the team that he was most likely to probably, just based on the fact that Notre Dame
needs a stopgap.
Yep. But we kind of, a little shocked by that, just based on the fact that, you leave one religious institution because.
Right. Of what was alleged.
Well, and what he said in court documents.
That's right.
That he had a consensual sexual relationship with a young woman out of wedlock, which that is against the BYU Code of Conduct. So he was facing anywhere between a 3 and 7 game suspension. So he has decided he's going to go in the transfer portal. I'm just going to read this directly. This is from the website Awful Announcing. That if you're not familiar with the website, it basically chronicles a lot of things that is said on broadcast television, social media, radio, things of that nature. Our station has been obviously on that website before. And so this has to do with Mike Golick Jr., who, if you remember, he attended Notre Dame University.
Yeah.
So Mike Golick Jr. says Notre Dame's policies against premarital sex didn't stop him. I had sex while I was in college. So Mike Golick Jr., who is now doing a FanDuel show every afternoon with his father, Mike Golick Sr., says that Notre Dame's policies against premarital sex did not stop him, quoting, I had sex while I was in college.
Got to meet Mike Golick Jr. at the Army-Navy game that we went to. This topic never came up, but he was a super nice guy.
So this conversation, and I think this was done late last week, by the way. This was not like today with this discussion about the BYU quarterback.
Yeah.
This conversation with Mike Golick Jr. that was on the ESPN digital-only show Debatable, that came actually, this was years ago. This was not last week. This was a few years ago. I just saw the date. He made reference to the fact that it all started when Buffalo Bills receiver returner Isaiah McKenzie said on his own show earlier in the week that he decommitted from the Irish. He wound up playing at Georgia instead after finding out the school's policy against sex. The coach goes, for you to be able to come here, there's no sexual intercourse throughout the whole school. So Mike Golick responded to that conversation on that other show. So there's the thing called parietals at Notre Dame. We have same-sex dorms all throughout the campus there. Guys are in the dorm. Girls are in the other dorm all throughout the campus. You've got to be out at the other sex's dorm after midnight on weekdays, after 2 a.m. on the weekends, yada, yada, yada. If you want me to say it out loud, I had sex while I was in college. I can make some calls if you want proof.
No, I don't think.
We're good. We're good, Mike.
2 a.m. though?
Yes. Wow. Yeah, that's
2 a.m.?
Well, everything bad happens after 2:01 a.m.
And then after this podcast, Mike Golick Jr. had tweeted out to his mom. He said, sorry, Mom.
Sorry, Mom.
Now, this interview is a couple years old. I do not know what the current status of Notre Dame's policies are.
I just want to go back to, was it McKenzie?
Mm-hmm. Who had decommitted?
And saying that he was going to go to Georgia after learning the policy that they had at Notre Dame. You imagine Kirby in his signing day press conference recap. This is the kid we were in on early, but yeah, he flipped us because we have a lot to offer, including.
I was about to
No
say
policies against premarital sex.
there's been a, on the different podcasts that you'll see, I think Ryan Clark had someone on one time that said something. These stories have come out of people that said, yeah, I was going to go to Notre Dame, but that was kind of the one kicker for me. And so I went somewhere else because I wanted to do what I wanted to do in my free time.
Yeah. All right, let's do this. Let's do some Ponders, brought to you each and every day by Courtesy GMC.
I want to know what you're thinking. Tell me what's on your mind.
It's time for Pat Ponders.
Brought to you by Courtesy GMC and Trustful. This is a holiday week, but they have inventory ready to move. It's the summer sale at Courtesy GMC and Trustful. Get by and see them. Right off of I-459, exit 32. Josh Gargis, Drew Lally, the fantastic team that they have. They've got pre-owned inventory, about 30 ready to move right now. 9 acres of inventory. The service department busting at the seams, ready to help you as long as their body shop, all award-winning. So go out and see them. That is Courtesy GMC and Trustful, courtesybirmingham.com. All right, question number 1. What was the most entertaining thing you did this weekend?
Attempted to play golf. We had a couples tournament, and we got paired up with another couple who she was an outstanding golfer. And it was actually a privilege just to watch her play from shot to shot and how she played the course. But it was great. Dorothy hit some good shots. I got lucky and hit some good shots, but it was a fun time and got to meet new people and people that listen to the show, and it was very nice.
Well, yeah, I went and played golf on Friday, but it didn't go as well for me. Unfortunately, it got rained out. I had really bad weather, but it was fun for the first half. But we went to the lake with some friends on Saturday, and we had just kind of like a guys' day at the lake. So a lot of our wives had plans and other things going on, so we just went and hung out at the lake and watched some UFC and grilled some hot dogs and drank some beer.
That sounds like fun. What about you, Pat?
I had to be on the zero turn from Artec Tractor. Got on it yesterday afternoon. The hour and a half that it used to take me to cut my grass.
It still takes you an hour and a half. It's just an hour of just riding.
Yes. Hour of riding and then 30 minutes of actually
I used
cutting.
to do that when I had a riding mower.
That's some good stuff.
Especially in the fall. You got all the leaves taken care of and everything. You got the little attachment. Have you gotten that yet?
Not yet. I've discussed that with Jeremy at Artec Tractor.
You got to get
for the
that.
fall.
But I want to see some designs. We can get a drone to fly over the backyard. I want to see some designs.
Okay.
In the backyard.
I'll see what I can do. But yeah, that was the most entertaining for me.
That sounds like fun.
Very relaxing. Not sweating as much. Where I'd have changed my shirt like 2 or 3 times while I'm cutting the backyard.
They probably have a little canopy you can attach to it too.
Yeah, I want to get some sun.
Little canopy with your drink holders.
Yeah. I got 2 nice little cup holders on my.
Do you have a playlist?
Yes, I actually have 3. I have 3 playlists on my phone. Yard 1, yard 2, yard 3. And it all depends on how much of the yard I want to cut. Like if it's a whole day thing, then I've got yard 1. Yard 2 is just if I want to cut the front and the sides. Yard 3 is I just want to cut the back. So different timestamps.
Are the songs, do they fit?
Yes, like if I'm doing just all the backyard.
If you start me up.
No, it's like Russian techno dance, trying to get you.
Oh, yep.
Trying to get you going.
It worked for Landon Dickerson and Mac Jones.
But see, now since I've got the zero turn and I'm just relaxed, I'm listening to a lot of
Dobie
Eagles,
Gray.
like a lot of Eagles, a lot of Don Henley, Bruce Hornsby.
Michael Bolton.
No.
Oh.
I heard enough of that when I was at the old radio station.
Or the dentist office.
Our sister station played that. Oh, my God. Way too much. It's awful.
Or Molly's Office Space Review.
Yeah. All right, next question. What was your favorite thing about your childhood hometown?
For me, it was how...
The caves? The cave system?
No, definitely not the caves. No, I think the good thing about growing up in a small town is, look, there are good and bad that come with everybody knows everybody. I think everybody can understand where that would be both good and bad. But generally speaking, and this sounds crazy to say now, never had to lock my doors growing up. Never had to worry about anything wrong going on. No one's going to break into a house. No one was going to no violence was going to happen. None of that was going on. It was just everyone was nice and you knew everyone and you all held each other accountable, and it was safe. It was a good sense of community, and I certainly miss that.
And I appreciate that, but I was not born in a place like Hayden. I was born in the more populated area of Homewood, you want to call it, over the mountain. And the thing that I really appreciated, because I had friends like Conrad who lived in other places, was the proximity to, not that you can't find fun things to do in other places, but the proximity of, going to, at the time when I was growing up, the Galleria. It was not a far drive, or going to a Barons game, or going to Legion Field, or going to some of these other places. I appreciated the fact that I lived there, and it was not going to take a whole lot of time to get there. It's just one of the things. What about you?
I spent a good bit of my youth, obviously in Missouri, and the town was about 14,000. And it was that community that Conrad was talking about, going to the ballpark and playing baseball and doing other things. It just was a very laid back atmosphere.
And those are the things that I envy. Not that we didn't have them where I lived, but it was different. But I envy that about those kind of towns where basically everybody knows everybody. Mm-hmm. You're going to church with a lot of the people that you deal with, whether it's the manager of. There's a lot of that I really appreciate.
Next question. For $1,000.
Ask the question first.
That would be 10 toothbrushes.
Would you shave your eyebrows off?
Man, I wish you'd asked me that for $10,000. For $10,000, I absolutely would shave my eyebrows off. And they'd be.
No, this is only $1,000.
But you know what? I would.
No, I just saw how long it takes them to grow back.
How long?
Mine grows so fast, though. I was thinking I could grow mine back pretty quick.
How long does it take?
4 months.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Really? 4 months?
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
You draw them in.
Hey, you know what he'd look like? Hey, he'd look like the guy from JFK, remember?
Or you could get some Hollywood style ones that you could tack on there every morning before you left the house.
$1,000. You would take a homeless man's toothbrush for $100 and brush your teeth for 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's over in 30 seconds, not 4
Your
months.
face would look so weird without the eyebrows.
Yeah, it'd look horrible.
I don't think anybody would look great without them.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
So that's a
because it's a great barrier between eyes and
it is
where it meets hairline for most of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it'd take 10 for you or 1,000?
It'd be 10. 10,000. Because what if they never grew back?
I would do it for 10,000, but not for 1,000.
Not for 1,000. How about 5,000?
Yes.
Can I do one eyebrow?
Sure.
I had a nephew that did that when he was a kid.
Just one eyebrow?
Just one eyebrow.
Oh, wow.
My sister, she was so mad because it was right before school started back. They were going to have the pictures.
Oh, I was about to say school pictures. Yep.
I thought it was great. She did not.
That's today's Pat Ponders, brought to you by Courtesy GMC in Trussville. Exit 32 off of I-459. Visit their online inventory at courtesybirmingham.com.
Just a gamut of responses on the text line. And Conrad has seen something bad, the worst thing that I've seen next.
Hopefully you'll join us tomorrow at Social Taco. Doors open up at 11. We will begin broadcasting at 10 o'clock. Mike Griffith is back after a week vacation. We'll talk to him about the upcoming SEC football media days. Also, David Waters from Gators Breakdown Podcast and Eric Henry from Horns 247 as we'll bounce around the SEC. As it's never too early to talk about the 2025 season. Sometimes Conrad sees good things. Most of the time, he sees bad. This is the worst thing he's seen.
This is the worst thing I've seen.
Been in quarantine, and I need to get out and party. Woo! What's better than beach and a few drinks and Jeeps? Man, it getting better than that. Law enforcement's definitely made their visitability and made people chill out and not be as crazy.
The cops are doing their job as long as they don't be mean to people who are actually being innocent. Then I'm all gravy, baby.
So unfortunately today, for the worst thing I've seen, this is probably a story that many of you are at least aware of because it happened yesterday and was, had headlines everywhere, and it's just a horrible, horrible situation that happened over in Idaho. So if you missed the story yesterday, there have been some updates along the way, but 2 firefighters were killed and a third was wounded on Sunday as they were shot from responding to a wildfire on an Idaho mountain that it was believed was set to lure firefighters into an ambush. So according to authorities, a tactical response team was able to use cell phone data to zero in on a wooded area where they then later found the body of who is believed to be the lone suspect alongside a nearby rifle as flames were rapidly approaching. It says that County Sheriff Robert Norris said in a press conference that a signal was detected coming from the cell phone that was in the same spot since about 3:16 p.m. local time yesterday. The authorities owned in on it, and that is where they found the expected shooter, a Wes Raleigh, who was identified by authorities as a 20-year-old male. So unfortunately, we do know that 2 firefighters passed away. The third one was injured and looks like they will be able to make a recovery. But regardless of how you spin it, 2 firefighters were out there trying to protect not only their community, but the state of Idaho. As we've seen what wildfires have done across this country here in the last couple of years, it's certainly a scary scene. And then when you find out that somebody used this as a way to lure firefighters out into danger and kill them, that is a very deep and dark kind of evil that we don't really have any room for in this world. And it's unfortunate when these stories come to light, but I know a lot of you probably followed along with this yesterday, and I'm sure a lot of you listening, either firefighters currently in the past, have friends and family that have done so and made that sacrifice as well. So our thoughts and prayers with all the family members, and just a truly horrific story that took place yesterday in Idaho.
Yeah, it's horrible. And thoughts and prayers with the victims and their families. And you think about first responders, and it's not only it's firefighters, it's police officers, but also EMS, paramedics, and just talking to Gringo about his paramedic days and going in, and it's potentially someone who is not a great person that you're having to go in and save, and then putting your life in danger when that person comes to, or realizing while you're working on them that they have a loaded weapon underneath them that they could be planning on using. Just horrible.
Well, it's awful because you just imagine, with the wildfires it was, what if the firefighters hadn't shown up and it could have been even worse and there's more loss of life. And so it's unfortunate that they were killed by doing that, but you just, their actions potentially saved many more lives by going out there and being able to take care of that situation before it escalated any further. But I mean, yeah, just horrible, horrible stuff. We have no need for that on this earth.
No. Those men and women, they're heroes, and they don't get enough credit. And then for something like that to happen, just terrible.
Yes. So unfortunately, that is the worst thing that I've seen.
We did have JJ that texted earlier in the show, and he said that he's getting married and was curious what airline we recommend for international flights. Delta, I have seen it gets really high marks. I know that
I've been on American International before, and that was fine.
Where's he going?
I did not say.
I mean, if you're going to Australia,
Lufthansa, that's one that my
Qantas to Australia.
My mother-in-law, my father-in-law, Lufthansa. I think that's how you pronounce it, but they had no issues. Said it was very nice, very efficient.
I have nothing but good things to say about Delta. If that's an option.
Yeah, and they've got affiliates like China Airlines. I flew on that when I went to Southeast Asia. That's going to do it for us. We appreciate you joining us. God is great. Paul Feinbaum and the Paul Feinbaum Show comes your way next here on Jocks.